So we are called to order. It's 5 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. Trustee Andrews.
Here.
Trustee Capal.
Here.
Trustee Clark, present. Trustee Khan.
Present.
And Trustee McMullen is on her way, so she'll join us shortly. So item 2B, approval of reorganizing agenda items. Do I hear any motions to reorder any items on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt it as it appears?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. The agenda is approved. That brings us to item 2D, public comment on non-agenda items. Mark, is this where you'd like to make your comment?
Mark Mariska, good citizen of Altadena. So I want to just say that Food Truck Fridays are going well again still, so any people here that haven't gone to a Food Truck Friday, you should go out there. And then I will say that on February 16th, I want to remind everyone again, all of the libraries participating, so it'll be in one or email blast or those kind of things, but it all started from just a gentleman bought a house that didn't know anything about the history. Found out a Tuskegee Airman who's lived there for 50 years, somebody who worked for the post office, but it's a kind of a special Tuskegee Airman, one of 50 who actually helped fight for the civil rights of Black Americans during World War II, specifically to be able to go into the officer lounge, which non-whites were not allowed to do. And so we're going to be honoring him as a community on February 16th from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock with the actual dedication of the plaque at approximately 2 o'clock. So if any of you can be there in the audience, anybody hearing this message, on behalf of Eugene and the committee that is working on this thing, we truly invite you to be there on the 16th of February. Oh yes, sorry. The address is 657 West Harriet Street. And so it's a block north of the Bob Lucas branch library, and that's Harriet. And then you just go all the way down from Lincoln, you go west towards Casitas, and it's about the 5th or 6th house on the right side. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay. Let's move on to the consent calendar, item 3. So if I could please have a motion to approve the consent calendar, and then as usual we can discuss any items you guys would like to go out.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Before we proceed to a vote, any discussion on the departmental reports, statistics, or minutes from last month?
I always have a question for Christopher. It's not here. So maybe Nikki, you might know. May I educate?
Please, yeah.
In his report on page 11, on the issue about the hotspot attrition, he talks about having been given the go-ahead for a special patron category. What does that mean?
So, in an effort to really launch the Library of Things, we're creating a different patron category that today he told me is called the Good Neighbor patron type, that basically establishes a good checkout history in order to be able to check out the things of higher value and things like that.
So kind of
We're
in good standing.
Yeah, we're analyzing all of the patron types right now and we're going to update them based on what makes sense in terms of how many checkouts and things like that. And once we have a informed report, we'll share it with the board before we move forward with creating that category.
Thank you. That answers it.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, thank you for the service at Bob Lucas. Evidently, you did some windows there. That's wonderful. You could say no more bars. And also, it was interesting that you had 21 hours of literacy instruction and services. So thank you for all that you do. It's a wonderful report. All of the reports are just absolutely wonderful. And it's great to see that Jesse Lopez is really on the ball on taking care of some things. So thank you so much.
And just real quick, I wanted to thank the folks for on the statistics page, there are totals on there, when they ask for trend lines and so on. That helps me, so I really appreciate the update on that.
Just a couple of quick things from me. I wanted to call out the mention in the Children and Family Services report about continued outreach to PUSD and JPL, and just voice my appreciation for that. The partnerships are critical, and I'm really happy to see that they're continuing to develop. I had the same question, Betsy, about
yeah.
training.
I want to be one.
I do too. I guess my question on that would also just be as a follow-up. I want to make sure that there are no barriers to accessibility in the sense that you wouldn't have to like meet a certain threshold, or we want to make sure we're not barring people from borrowing items or creating any kind of gatekeeping. And I understand certainly the need to make sure all of our mobile hotspots don't walk away. I did love the stats as well, and I thought it was worth noting as well that our numbers for visitors to both the main library and the branch are pretty steady this year over last year, but I was thrilled to see the increase in new cardholders from Bob Lucas. I thought that was great this year over last year, so that was really exciting, and I appreciate too having this month the breakdown of types of electronic resources, so we could really see what people are interested in. I did have a question. I saw kits listed, and I was just wondering, like, what is that in a checkout type? So it's an item type. There's like audiobooks, kits. Oh, so
So from the children's section, it's a book with its audio version, so CD,
Oh, okay.
or whatever, so they can read along.
Oh, that's cool. And then my last two notes, just thrilled to see the emergency team in place and ticking along. And then I was thrilled that the team services screamed new girls because it's outstanding. All right. Any other comments, questions, feedback on items from the consent calendar?
I would just like to add appreciation for the new format, or the added format in the statistics, because I know it adds work, but the breakdown by square footage, which I think was, Terry, was that your idea? Not that there's any competition between the Maine and Bob Lucas, but what it really shows us is the bang for the square feet that we're getting at Bob Lucas.
Yeah.
Really, yay. I mean, it's right there in the numbers, so it's great to see that they're really able to deliver so much in the space that they have.
I have an additional comment on that, and that is that I believe, and this is really nitpicky, I guess, but I believe the most useful way to look at this is per square foot, which is, I'm not sure how relevant it is, but it's, I like looking at it, as Leslie mentioned, would be to have the patron space as the denominator on that, instead of the entire square footage, because what happens is that adjusting out for what the traffic is for the places where the patrons go. So in the case of the main library, it would actually be about 17,000 square feet. And, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the case of Lucas, I computed last night, but it sort of balances it out, which is usually true. So,
Okay, we'll try to make it reflective next month.
okay.
Although I do, in some ways, it's nice to have kind of both, like the patron space and total square footage, because it also shows us what percentage of our square footage is allocated for patron usage and what our rate of usage is per location. So in some ways, having like total square footage and patron available square footage would be really helpful, just to, for those of us who aren't looking at those numbers every month, to remind us sort of how much, what percentage of our buildings we're moving to.
Let me ask this question.
Point, would you mind if I move your mic over?
So, can you hear me? You mean to tell me I'm not speaking loud enough?
It just needs to be closer. That's
Oh,
right.
okay. I would think that I'm over the
Use your
moon.
teacher voice.
Okay, I do have that teacher voice, so let me just ask this question. I noticed that you were going to do Wild LA as or did you decide on that book yet? And I noticed that it said you were reaching out to science and nature groups to see if they would participate. Did you get any responses to that?
Yes, so Wild LA definitely was selected to be our Read Athena book this year. And it was written by 4 authors from the Natural History Museum. And Chloe and Jesse have met with them to go tour the museum and already have several events scheduled, including like nature walks and programs in the library that they're going to be coming out and offering them. And then it will be culminated at the end with an event with all of the authors on May 30th with a panel and I think other programming that day as well. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of really good programs in March, April, and May.
March, April, May. Do we include what do I want to call it, on New York Drive down that direction?
Oh,
Edenton Canyon?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I went to town council last week and kind of challenged each of the councilors to set up book groups in their census tracts, even if they have to hold them at their house. So Chloe's working on putting together some book group kits so we can have the book all throughout the community.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the consent calendar? All right, so having been moved and seconded, could I please have a vote to approve the consent calendar? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So that brings us to item 5A, our reports from support groups. So I'd like to invite representatives from the foundation to come on. Bridgette?
Are we on 6A?
Thank you. Okay. As always, I want to thank you for your time and then the energy that all of you give in service to the library. I also want to take a minute to give really high praise to the Friends of the Altadena Library for all the work they put in bringing the Mount Low Chamber concert here. I wish you all, if you weren't here, it was simply amazing. People, literally, we had to start carrying folding chairs up the stairs. Every chair was filled. The energy was just unbelievable. People were so excited to be here. So I really want to commend the Friends for sponsoring that. It was wonderful. And it was interesting how many people have never seen the inside of this library. I'm still amazed. And I also want to give a shout out to Christmas Tree Lane Association for this year including the foundation in this traditional celebration. It was really a welcome invitation. We were glad to be able to help them. And we're also pleased to have representation at each of our town hall meetings as we discuss the architectural plans for the library. And while we recognize the overwhelming need for funding, we're working to position the foundation to be able to effectively help make some of these dreams a reality. We're heading into 2020 with positive attitudes and hopes to engage with our community and neighbors grounded in our strategic plan's core values of equity, innovation, and empathy. At our January meeting, we were happy to welcome Jason Capel as the new trustee liaison. We approved our slate of officers for the year: Bridgette Brewster as president, Mark Mariscal treasurer, and Lola Warlick Bryan as secretary. Additionally, we reviewed adopted a robust budget for 2020, which includes funding for the library's Census 2020 outreach on behalf of the library. We also began discussions about our first annual appeal, which we hope to be doing in April. And then in collaboration with our library director, we've created a mutually respectful guidelines for working directly with assigned staff in the areas of marketing, events, and administrative assistance. And now we're seeking a chairperson for Taste of Dina, and we hope to have the first planning meeting in February. And then we're going to be contacting the vendors for this event in the next couple weeks. So if you know someone in the community who loves planning events, let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Right, and now we have a report from the Friends.
Everyone, so I think we'd like to start our Friends report with a special presentation to the Scouts, which will be made by Friends board member and ex-president Marnie Brown. So if you guys like to come up. Scouts want to come up to the front. Always to take photos. Everybody's a camera. Yeah, I think you guys are at the front there, and then so walk with the microphone.
Thank you, Marnie. My name is Craig Snodgrass. I am the Troop Committee Chair for Troop 1. Troop 1 Boy Scouts was at, and still is, at St. Mark's Church. Though, if you see our representatives, we have added not just boys, but in 2019, the Boy Scouts of America expanded their program to include girls. And Troop 1 enthusiastically embraced that change and sponsored Troop 1 Girls. And so from left to right, representing adults, we have Don Matsumoto, our Scoutmaster of Troop 1 Boys, and Floyd Patton, Assistant Scoutmaster of Troop 1 Boys. And on the far right, we have Rose Cortez, our Scoutmaster for Troop 1 Girls. And our two senior patrol leaders for both the boys troop and the girls troop, Devin Patton in the middle, and Ann Marquardt, who is our senior patrol leader for our girls. And we are just so delighted to continue a relationship with Altadena Library. And we're pleased it's Punch to be recognized. So I'm going to turn it back over to Marnie for the presentation.
So on behalf of the Friends of the Altadena Library, I would like to present this recognition plaque to the Scouts of Altadena Troop 1 for their decades of service to the Altadena Library and the community of Altadena. So if you check the National Scouts website, you will see references to service, community engagement, and to leadership development, and a notation that Scouting builds character and instills values for a lifetime. My personal observation is over the decades in which Troop 1 has volunteered thousands, literally thousands of hours at the Friends of the Altadena Library annual book sale in May. Troop 1 has contributed to the success of the book sale by helping with the initial setup of the many thousands of millions, trust me, millions of books each year, assisting customers with books purchased and in the closing activities after the sale when cleanup and restoring the community room and the library grounds after the book sale. The Friends annual book sale has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the library, and this would not have happened without the contribution of Troop 1. Troop 1 has also contributed to the Eagle Scout projects, building the Art Lonnie Reading Park, which you probably all seen in the parking lot there, the retaining wall between the library and the senior center, and the shelves in the library downstairs, which the staff uses for their storage. I've watched Scouts from Troop 1 grow up from the Cub Scouts to become adult volunteers. I've seen them do their Eagle Scout projects. And on behalf of the Friends of the Altadena Library, I thank the Scouting organization for instilling a value and appreciation for the Altadena Library and these young Altadenians. On behalf of the library, the Friends of the Altadena Library recognize Troop 1 support of the Altadena Library.
So if it's possible to get the trustees to come right next to the Scouts, and then Marty and Claire.
Other people are dealing with.
I just would like to stand and back in somebody because I'm not, I didn't know I was going
You know what? Scouts, you're going to have to sit. Sit.
I was worried they wouldn't be enough.
Scouts, sit down. Scouts, sit down. Because you're in uniform. Looks much better that way.
This is good. There we go. Yeah.
Thank you much.
Another rule. Marnie, you should be in the library. Let's have Marnie in the middle.
Claire, go over and I said you need to balance the men-women ratio for the photo. Well, seriously.
Annie, don't you want to be in? No. No?
Gee. Library, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Oh, I gotta look at your. They give them out. We give them the other chairs come over here.
You guys are already helping.
Thank you very much.
Very open
Thank you
to
very much.
you. Oh my goodness, we even So I'm really glad that we could do that. I've never failed to appreciate the magic of seeing the Scouts return at the end of a sale, usually when the rest of us are wilting, and suddenly 2 dozen tables filled with books magically turn into this wall of books stacked high next to the library. And you think, how do they do it? But they're just that good, so thank you. And of course, I should mention, we now have more than 1 huge book sale each year, which means we have 3, which means the Scouts are even more vital. And they've already helped at our big September sale last year. So we are so very grateful to Troop 1 for your continuing willingness to say yes whenever we ask for help, even when we keep on adding more jobs. So thank you. So just to continue with a short report. So Friends membership renewal letters and general update letters for those who do not need to renew their membership, such as lifetime members, have now gone out. So if you are a friend and you haven't rejoined for this year, you will be receiving one, or will have already received one. We are in the process of contacting potential speakers for our annual meeting, including Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Sympathizer, Kit Thang Nguyen, and we have a short list of people we're very excited to invite. Of course, there's no guarantee that any of them will come, but we hope that they will. And if we have more than 1 person interested, then we will have more than 1 speaker meeting this year. So we're hoping to really work hard at having good speakers sort of lined up. We're also working hard to recruit more volunteers to be on the full board. Even though we have a lot of board members, it's always good to keep recruiting and find people who have different expertise and different interests. And we're also looking for volunteers to help with book donations in particular, and also the bookstore. So if anybody is interested in volunteering, you can find out how to contact us on our website. You can speak to me after this meeting, or you can come downstairs to book sorting at 7 p.m. So there's many ways. We're also just finalizing an agreement to partner with the Pasadena Federal Credit Union, PFCU, in which any full member is eligible to join the PFCU. So this is beneficial to our existing members because credit unions offer many advantages, such as lower eligibility requirements in banks, some lower rates on loans, and so on. But it also benefits FOL because people may join the Friends simply to become eligible to join the PFCU. Of course, they don't have to join us again the following year, but we will receive all of their initial membership donation and also their contact information, so we can reach out to them ourselves, encourage them to attend Friends events, learn more about the library, and hopefully remain a member and become more involved in future. And then finally, our next huge book sale will take place in the parking lot on February the 22nd and 23rd. And we think that you will see the Scouts again there. We'll be open on the Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon for Friends members. The people can join on the door for a mere $10. And from noon to 5 p.m. for everyone, and then open to all on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Kate?
Please, yeah.
Claire, do you have a date for the speakers event that you mentioned?
No,
Or
we
is that-
don't. It's
yeah.
usually in June.
Okay.
It's usually a Monday evening, but we're trying to be flexible on that.
According to who's available.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like an amazing possible lineup.
Well, yeah. That's right. We have to thank Nikki for getting recommendations for us from the Pasadena library director. So that was great. And apparently he and another author had come there and they'd done they were amazing speakers. So that sounded good. Oh, and I almost forgot to say, when I was talking about volunteers, we're also extremely grateful for the volunteers that we do have and have had in the past, include many of the people in this room, and we're especially grateful to Uni for all the work she has done to get us some great volunteers as well. So,
Well, thank you so much for that, Claire, and thank you, Marnie and Joy, and all the rest of the friends for being here. And we were so glad that we were able to spend some time recognizing Troop 1 and everything that they do to support the library. And please, as always, convey our appreciation to the Friends' entire membership for everything that they do throughout the year. Thank you so much. Okay, this brings us to item 5B, the District Director's Report. So, Mitchell, I'll turn over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'd rather give my time to our presentation, which are we saw just be brief. I attended my second Saturday in January, which, being totally transparent, I'm not the biggest country fan, but actually the band, they were called Magnolia Draw, were amazing. They played Michael Jackson, Led Zeppelin, like all kinds of different bands. Like, it was really fun, and I can't wait to go in February. The next one is February 8th with Jack Cat Swing Band. Coincidentally, my parents are coming to visit, so if you come, you'll get to meet them also. We still need a person to do the intro to the March and April second Saturdays, so if any of the trustees are interested, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll figure out someone else to greet everybody. We will be opening up a web page to submit to perform in the fall series. I formed basically a sub-team to plan on second Saturday, and we want as many people as possible to be able to submit. I believe that's going to happen in April and May. We'll have lots of information coming. I know Chloe's already put together the page. But what we're going to do is recruit submissions for first for the fall, and then closer to fall we'll do it for winter and spring. In addition to that, we're also looking to expand vendor involvement. So we're going to try to figure out a way to get more local businesses to participate. So more information to come on that. Let's see. I also would like to thank the Friends for their work on building the partnership with Mount Low Chamber Series. I was also here. We set up 60 chairs and printed 100 programs thinking we were going to be in great shape, and we ended up with 153 people. Wow. Yeah, and we were, yeah. Like, But yeah, like community members, everybody was coming in the community room, grabbing chairs so everyone could sit. And it was wonderful. The next one I believe is scheduled for March 29th. So I definitely would encourage everybody to come. It was like very high quality.
I was just going to say, another thing I should have mentioned was that Phoebe Ray, who was probably the main organizer or the main contact person for us, was amazing. And really all the credit I think goes to her and the library staff and yourself for making that all come together. And of course the friends, volunteers, and Bridgette and others who went there and volunteered. So.
Yeah, it was definitely a team effort, but it really turned out nice. And I would imagine they're just going to continue to grow. Let's see, what else did I want to highlight? So as I mentioned, we did kick off the classification and compensation study. Coffin Associates have been great to work with. They came out and did an orientation with the staff and the management team on the 16th, I believe it was. So right now, staff are filling out PDQs, which is their position description questionnaire. Those are due to their managers this Friday. I'm going to be reviewing all of them before they go back to COF on the 14th of February. So that's moving along nicely, and we'll keep reporting to the board on the progress.
Can I just ask a question real quick on that? So I know going back when we first started talking about this process with Cindy, and I believe what the contract that was approved also included a review of like, HR policies and all. Is that still a piece of this? It's going to happen after? Like, is there status on how that fits into?
My understanding is that BB&K is doing that part of the audit instead. So
we're waiting on them to.
They are reviewing the 3 employee handbooks right now for legal compliance. Once we get all the feedback based on that, then pretty much Nicole and I will work on putting together a comprehensive employee handbook that incorporates basically all 3 of them and making sure all of it's legally compliant. So I believe the RFP originally included both, but it ended up getting separated out. Yep. I also wanted to remind everyone to download the Cloud Library app when you have a chance. It's not live yet, but we will be launching February 19th with access to all of the 140,000 volumes on February 27th. So that will be when Overdrive closes, so you'll need to switch to Cloud Library, but we're going to have a much, much, much bigger catalog of materials. And lastly, I'll just mention that I met with the director of the Sierra Madre Library last week, who coincidentally is the daughter of someone that used to work with me in Glendale, so it's funny what a small world this is. And we took a tour of her library. They also have many accessibility issues, so it was really interesting talking to her, and they've gone through schematic design. They have this building that they want to build and have to go to bond this year. So I'll definitely stay in conversation with her about that whole process and see how it works and how it's going for them. But it was interesting seeing their library and some of the similar issues.
So they're planning on having a November bond initiative for Sierra Madre. Oh, interesting.
And I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, I guess I did. The question I did have that you mostly answered was reminding us what the rationale was for the switch from Overdrive to Biblioteca, and more books is the main answer. But I just wondered is there any other particular advantage to that switch, or is that the reason?
Well, currently with Overdrive we have 3,800 volumes, which we have to purchase every single one to have as part of our catalog. With Cloud Library, it's a cloud link sharing system, so it's us and 29 other library systems worth of materials sharing. So, I mean, for basically like $1,000 a year, we get to participate with Cloud Link and have access to all of that stuff. So it's just simply so much more access.
Yeah, cool. Can't wait.
And thanks, Nikki, also for the calendar to try to get the board package out there a little sooner. And I just wonder if there's anything about that could help with attendance at the board meetings a little bit for the public. I'm not sure what that would be, but if you come up with any ideas, whether it's an early posting or what have you, to try to bring some more members of the community in, that would be welcome, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I'll talk to Chloe about how we can market it to maybe encourage that. But I do think giving the board as well as the community members a week to review might give them time to, you know, see what is being discussed and see if they want to come. So we'll stick as closely as we can to that schedule.
We'll do it if we make it happen. And just a reminder, you guys all probably see this on your calendar. So the goal is to have the entire packet out a week in advance, which means if you have trustee reports or, you know, written reports for a committee or anything like that, if you please get them in that usually by about the 15th. So sort of the middle of the second week. There are a couple months that are a little bit different because we meet earlier, but you'll see that calendar on page 24. Okay. Perfect. All right. So let's move on to our marketing and communications presentation. Chloe.
So I'm going to go over today, sort of, since not everyone is familiar with all the different roles in the library, sort of what I do on a day-to-day and what that looks like, and all the different pieces that go into my position. So,
Chloe, before you get
oh
started,
yeah,
would you pronounce your whole name?
oh Lord, okay, it's Chloe Cavalier Desclavel. The S on the end is, but Chloe Cavalier is fine. I've heard it all. Trust me, my whole life. I've heard it.
But say it the way
Cavalier Desclavel. Desclavel.
Thank you.
And technically Chloe is Chloe, but I'm not going to hold anyone to that. My weird French family. So the two parts of my job, my position title is Marketing and Community Engagement Manager. And I wanted to sort of break down sort of the approach behind my position and the work that I do, and then break down sort of the more day-to-day type tasks so you guys are aware with what's on my plate on any given day. So marketing and brand, essence and experience, I'll explain what the gist is. So brand, I know we've all heard a lot of words for what branding is, and people talk about personal branding, and at brands we think of big names like Coca-Cola or whatever. But a brand, the way I like to sum it up is a brand is sort of what someone says about you when you first meet them as you walk out of the room. It's your impression. It's the essence that you leave behind, and it's sort of what people know of you. That can be positive, that can be negative sometimes when you go through hard times as an organization. It shifts over time, but your brand is sort of all of the things that sum up the essence of what people know of you and the impression that you make in a community or in your audience. Marketing are the activities that support that brand, so that support and connect people, the public, with the information that they need to be able to engage best with your brand and hopefully tell your brand story. So on there's some quotes that I like from the American Marketing Association, but that's the gist of sort of behind all of the different things that I make throughout the day, all of the different all the collateral that we have, every brochure, every flyer, every newsletter. I try to keep those in mind as I'm doing my work of like what is the library brand. I think now with the new strategic plan, it had been kind of a little wonky for a while because we didn't have an up-to-date strategic plan, but having a new strategic plan and having those keywords of neighbor, connector, having curious, inspiring curiosity, and having updated our value statements, I think is going to be really helpful in getting the word out and tying all that back together with a more cohesive brand moving forward. So my background is, it varies from nonprofit work to also having my own business, and I like to think of what we do or what my function does every day is moving our neighbors down a sales funnel, so to speak. So if you think of a funnel as the widest part being everyone out in the community that maybe doesn't even know about us, all the way down to that little tip that is our core key supporters and our ambassadors, the work that I do every day is moving people from just awareness, so with things like our website, social media presence, newspaper ads, the things that people will just see as their first touch point of us. All of the work that I do is with the goal of moving them further down the funnel towards more meaningful engagement with the library. So that means getting them in the door to come to programs, having them come and check out materials, and then hopefully at the end of it, being someone who's going to take our word out into the community, because the best marketing of all is happy clients and happy patrons. So that's sort of, again, this is all sort of the approach. behind what I do on the day-to-day that guides the work that I do as we're trying to get them in the door and being ambassadors for us. The community engagement piece, I know this often gets conflated with the word outreach, but this is, community engagement goes beyond just outreach. Community engagement, the gist of that is listening and then figuring out how to apply that in a way that is going to actually reflect the needs of our community. So again, the process of the specific purpose of working with our community to identify and address the issues affecting their well-being. So outreach absolutely plays a part in that, because that's where we can be out in the community collecting that information and giving services outside the library. But it also speaks to a big goal of ours, which within our strategic plan talks about listening and being genuinely curious about what our community wants. So a lot of the work that I do day to day talks about how we can use partnerships and collaborations in our community to better understand and move forward with the programs that our talented librarians and library staff put on. So where are we right now? With the new strategic plan, I think we're rebuilding, we're continuing to rebuild that momentum around being out in the community and building that trust. Having a strategic plan is really going to help guide those relationships as we build them. A lot of what I'm doing right now with all of our new hires, with Jessie coming in and Mei Ling, is creating sustainable structures that will carry us forward. So I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, but our outreach previously has been not as structured maybe as what we want, that we can actually evaluate what we're doing. And so right now with our new staff on board, I'm doing a lot of work to create the structure, build the structure we need to be able to move forward and really get out there in a replicable way, so that it's not starting fresh each time, that we actually have a process that's standardized and that we can use moving forward. And trial and error. We're fortunate, I think a lot of libraries that I've connected with out at different conferences and such, they're always excited by the idea of having someone in my position on their team, because a lot of libraries our size, that's spread out work between all the librarians, and so often it's not as maybe consistent or cohesive in the work that they put out there. So we are fortunate in the way that with my position here, we get to try different things like the reading groups that Nikki talked about, and trying to build those structures that work for our unique community, because Altadena, like any community, is unique and has unique needs and desires from other communities. So the breakdown of what I do, here's the day-to-day. Printed, all the stuff that's printed around the library, outreach planning, website and all the digital content that we have, including email marketing, social media planning, dealing with the news and the media, and including our paid advertising that we put out, community engagement initiatives and program development. So I'm a part of the programming and engagement team, which means I'm a key member of helping develop the programs and making sure that we have the data to back up why we're doing it and to help create the structure that's going to help us move those forward in a way that's successful. And then supporting our support groups. So printed, that means every single flyer that you see in this library is something that I've written, designed, and laid out very intentionally. All of the signage upstairs, from the signs that are printed really large above each section to the signage that might be on any of like the end caps that talks about special upcoming events, all of that, any sort of posters you might see, and even the displays. Sometimes I've been helping with create the graphics for the displays that go on. I'm also on the displays committee to ensure that when people walk in the library, their brand experience, even looking at the displays, is a positive one, and that it looks professional, and that it looks like something they'll remember, and that they might want to check out one of those books. So all printed things. News media, so that means press releases, any sort of paid ads we do. My budget, you'll see throughout the year, the biggest push for it is around the springtime when we're pushing for summer reading. Summer reading is one of our biggest, I think, opportunities to get people in the door when they have maybe a little more free time, and especially families to come and explore the library. So a lot of our ad money we spend in a lot of the big summer issues that parents are looking at to find where they might be able to put their kid for summer camp or those types of things that we offer free services. That's where a lot of our ad money goes throughout the year. Press releases for big events and big initiatives, and then updating a lot of the local news. Since Altadena does not have a centralized news information slot, a lot of that takes just time updating all the different external news calendars, like with our bigger events like on Pasadena Weekly or Pasadena Altadena Now, all of those. And then supporting the idea of a centralized news/information source in Altadena, we've been having conversations with NBBA recently about their push to create a centralized, whether it's a newspaper or some sort of online content, that the library wants to figure out how we can play a part in that, and also figure out how we as our library website can be a part of sharing news around. Happy library patron outside. Website maintenance and content development. So I built the website that we currently have from scratch. That was a project. And so I have to continue developing it as we go along. So I have a monthly sort of schedule of all the different pages that require updates monthly to make sure they're up to speed and have all the information that people need. The website calendar, which is one of our top hits on the website. The two biggest pages that we get hit are our passports page and our events page. And so the website calendar, keeping that up to date, that's up to me. Making sure our blog is up to date, and on some of our different patron age group pages, you'll see we have bookshelves that have different reading lists for depending on the month or the theme of the month, and I work with our librarians to maintain those. And then also compliance, maintaining compliance with the web content accessibility guidelines. We have to hit a certain level of compliance, so as of now we are up to date, but as we add new content, everything needs to always be examined to make sure that we are in compliance on our website, and so that it can be read by screen readers and by people who may have accessibility issues on the computer. Emails and social media planning, so in implementation. So we do regular emails out to our different audience segments. So within our email editor, we have the opportunity to not just do one big e-blast like we used to. We used to do weekly e-blasts, and our open rates were down in the 15–16% point now that we do a big one monthly e-blast to everyone, and then smaller e-blasts to different age groups specifically about the programming. I have seen our open rates double from what we used to get, so I'm very excited to see more people engaging, opening, and clicking on things. And that may seem like silly, but that's one more person who might click and go to our website and discover something that they want to explore more, so that's a big deal. And then social media. Our focus in the new year is going to be on more videos, showing our staff off more, having them engage more in that process, so that people really like to see our highest performing social media pieces, and posts are where we are showing, having our staff present or talking or showing a book or that type of thing. And you may have seen, I will brag for a moment. I'm not going to sing, but as of I think like 2 days ago, our video that we posted for Happy New Year is over 4,000 views, so I'm very excited about that.
Great.
Which for us is very viral, I will just say. For us compared to our last one, we're like 500 views, so many. It's like, no. We went viral this time, and I'm very pleased. So more content like that, that's going to get people excited and thinking of our library in a new way. I think a lot of the comments that we got were, oh, our library is so fun. Like, I don't want people to think of our library as some sterile book warehouse. Like, we have a lot of fun energy going on, and I think things like that and showing off the creativity of our staff is part of it. Then the outreach planning and community engagement. So before, oops, I'm moving back, that's to come. Like I said before, this piece of it was part of my position. We didn't have a centralized organization system for how we did outreach. It was very haphazard, and sometimes that was resulting in redundancy and reaching out to certain groups in the community. And so the goal of my position is to help centralize the organization and evaluation of those efforts. So that means one of my first things I did over the summer was building a database that has all of our contacts in the community in it, so that we can better track which staff person is in contact with different groups out and about. That means helping support staff as they identify outreach engagement opportunities that they want to go to. I always welcome staff to bring ideas, and if they want to go to an event, that I want to make it happen and help support them with that. And then also identifying other places that we could be doing outreach. So as Mark shared earlier, the Oliver Goodall project, we're really excited to have a table there, and we actually ordered some books especially for this event to be able to have available for checkout at that event. So planning all of those, and then tracking what type of response we get, because I want to make sure that when we do send staff out in the community, it's sort of worth the staff time that it's going to take to do it. So that means seeing if it's an event that doesn't necessarily feel in line with what we're doing, it might not be worth it, and we could spend that staff hour, the staff hours elsewhere. So scheduling staff is part of that, and then special projects like the Readadena coming up. So Readadena, Jesse and I have been working closely on, we put together a committee of community members who are helping guide our processing with coming up with how to engage around this book. We know that Wild LA is not a traditional fiction or a novel that maybe a book group would center around, but with Altadena being so close to the wilderness, that Wild LA also speaks about a lot of Altadena spots, that it felt like an appropriate one that could also cross a lot of the age groups. So I managed that committee to make sure that those the members of the committee have things to do and that they feel like there's buy-in and that they're going to really help us get the word out as we get closer to that. The reading group idea was something I came up with I found that over time, people in communities, I think, have urges to connect with each other, but then don't always have the capacity to put that together and make that happen. So I found that if you just take all the thinking out of it and say, just show up, we're going to provide all the information and everything you need to enjoy each other, people will come. So that's the idea behind the reading groups, is to create these kits where we'll be giving them free copies of the book, and then a whole bunch of different ways that they can engage with the book and with our community through Readadena. And then our goal is to have those reading groups continue so that we can do with future books, maybe in the fall, we do another, not an official big one community, one read, but offer them opportunities to continue to engage with the library, where the library is building community in their homes. So that is what Nikki was referring to earlier, that we really want our town council members to host a reading group in their own home. Census, I know that this will probably be spoken about later on as well, but that census is a big piece of my job right now, with trying to put together outreach opportunities that support getting the word out there about the census and helping people understand and be aware of how important the census is for federal dollars to get to our community and how it affects representation. And I know Katie could probably speak better to this, but also with the redistricting initiative coming up. And so we currently have potentially, that I need to make a lot of phone calls this week, and I have been last week, but about 30 different events that the library will either be out at, like the Little League that Betsy and I were emailing about earlier today. So being at like opening day for the Little League to get there with the families, to be out at different churches on different Sundays or different faith groups too, including the Pasadena Jewish Temple, and I think that's right on our border. Just getting our staff out there with information and ways that people can engage so that they can learn more about why the census is so important. So that's sort of under my belt coming up, to try to get this all organized and together so that we can have staff scheduled and make it work with our desk schedule to get out there in the community. And then the big summer reading is really big and also coming very quickly. So this is also on my list of, I'm on the summer reading team and develop all the materials that go into the summer reading process. So like we're trying to change up our structure a little bit this year, and part of that is going to be new materials that are more engaging for families, from the reading logs to the brochures that they might get when they sign up. All of that also falls sort of under my purview, as well as creating more events that we really want to highlight, getting our staff again out in the community for this summer and not as much just focused on the events we have inside. We really want to go out and identify groups or families, or even with the PUSD schools, figuring out ways during summer school to get out there and bring fun programming that's going to get people excited about the library out and about. And then supporting our support groups, so the foundation and the friends. So right now I'm working with the foundation to finalize the building of their new website that's tied in with Flipcause, which is what they use for their donor management. That includes website updates with the friends, and including the friends in our newsletter. Event support, appeal support means helping just create, if you guys ever need help with collateral, that's part of my gig. And if you guys ever need signage and those types of things around that seem foundation or friends related, that is done in collaboration with those groups as well. So you are part of the marketing team. Sorry, I did this for staff and I just adapted it, but you guys are, as members who are out in the community and out in our social media groups, and you guys are known in the community as representatives of this library. You are part of the marketing team and being a face of the organization. So I wanted to just say, if you're a first point of contact, Nicole, thank you for letting me use your decision this. But if you're a first point of contact for the public, that means both staff but also board members as you're out at events, you're technically a brand ambassador. And so I just am excited to have you as part of my team and out there representing the library well. And I hope that you guys can all follow us on our social media things. We have all of our platforms. We have a main library pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and then we have some more specialized groups on for youth services and teens. And the teen account, I will say, has some really fire library memes. If you ever want a good meme, head over to the library, Altadena Teens, and it's got some really fun content. So that's what I do. Thank you.
Just a quick No, I was joking, you just have a couple things.
Oh, yeah.
Cody, I had just a
Yeah,
quick question
please.
for you. It's been so long since I had a library card, it's gonna come across as a stupid question, but when people get new library cards here, they get email addresses, right? And they
Correct.
get entered in. Okay, is that one way then you grow your list?
Yeah, so we have it set up in our email platform. There's this thing called APIs where it'll link into our Koha database just to get the email addresses that we choose and we say to add. So Christopher has some special coding and magic that he does to make sure that they're regularly pulled reports of new people on our list. So it's constantly growing, and not everyone wants it, so we do get some unsubscribes, but that we at least, that's sort of what you get looped in for when you get a card.
Yeah, and it seems like the 4,000 hits you got on that little piece you put on that's terrific. Really
Thank
good
you.
card.
I'm very pleased. We never quite know.
Well, I'll pass on my compliments to the visual aspect of the library in general lately. The pictures that were used in the strategic planning report, I know that was a collaborative effort, but little things like that make such a big difference when people engage the website because it really humanizes it. So I wanted to let you know it hasn't gone unnoticed by me.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
One question.
Yeah.
With all of those emails, which was really powerful, 4,000.
Oh, no, we have about 13,000 on our list.
13,000.
Yes.
Okay, and they're categorized into children and adults, right?
So we have some sub-segments, you could call them. So we do have early literacy. We have an early literacy list, an elementary school list, teen list, and then sort of the adult list, and then the main list.
Okay.
And so we only use those segments when there's really sort of an important thing coming up that we don't want to bog down people with emails. I don't want to be a spammer. So we try to keep it to when there's really big events that they want to know about. But yeah, those are all part of that big list.
So the foundation uses what?
So they also use they have their own list that they keep, but that we will, as part of my support of them, I help design if they ever need to do an email outreach blast, that type of thing. That can be done through our constant contact account. So they just provide me with the list of emails that you would need to go to, and then we would do it through there.
Okay, and so are we doing annual drives or anything?
Sure,
in
so
that area?
yeah, I can speak about, Bridgette, if it's okay if I give a summation of what we've talked about recently. So part of what Bridgette mentioned is that she's working with Nikki to help determine how much of our time is to be spent on foundation, supporting the foundation and collaborating. And one of those things that we did recently was map out sort of for the year some of the appeals that we foresee coming so that I can better manage my time and know when things are coming up. So absolutely, I know we have like the annual drive or the annual solicitation that you spoke of. We haven't spoken yet if that will be an email component as well. It'll probably be a mailing, I imagine, but we'll figure out. Yeah, probably a combination of both. But so with those projects, I work directly with Bridgette and Leslie Dank, who's the marketing chair of the foundation. So
Very good.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'd just like to say, for the sample record, that, yeah, the strategic plan documents that you see in the board packet this month, a huge, huge thank you goes to Chloe for all the work that she did, because she really did so much, I think, above and beyond to make sure that everything looks cohesive, that it represents our brand and our image and the faces of the people in our community. And so I want to say, thank you so much for that, because I know it was a tremendous amount of work.
Just keeping people on task.
Yep. It's always a process, but it's a big deal. So thank you so much for that, and for the many, many, many things that you do.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I do want to say my door is always open too, that if you have ideas or contacts, I'm always, like, even Betsy and I were emailing today about some opportunities, and I sort of look, and the reason I had that little icon there of the door opening is that I look at a lot of my position when it comes to outreach as being a person to help open a door if there's a need. We have a lot of talented staff who absolutely have had relationships in the past with different groups, and that sometimes with PUSD, for instance, I'm working with our teen librarian Isabel to identify groups of teens that we can do focus groups with around what their needs and desires are when it comes to their learning and growing up in Altadena. And so I've been the person as part of that process who is making those contacts out with PUSD. I'm not afraid to cold call, I guess, is basically what I'm saying. So as you have people that come up that you want added to our list, I absolutely welcome you to just keep the door open so that I can open doors. That didn't work as well as I thought, but it's the end of a Monday. So yes, I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Are you working with the charter schools too?
Yeah, so we have a whole list of schools that we're working through. Right now, we're trying, so for teens specifically with this, we call it internally our Soaring Owls project, because reading owls, I don't know, it's stuck after a while. But one of the things that we really want to do is work specifically with Muir as the high school that we're testing out these groups with before we take it far and wide with a bunch of other schools. So PUSD, we've had sort of not troubled relationships. Sometimes it's hard to just keep the same channels open. So we're starting with Muir, sort of our test for that, and we've already spoken to about 50 students so far to gather their feedback in sort of smaller groups. And so the goal is once we sort of get our process down with Muir to then take it to hit as many schools as we can and get as much feedback as possible as Isabel gets settled and
Because I
plans
know
her programs.
Odyssey is right up the street from
Mhm.
Mount Lucas, and they love going to
Yes.
Mount Lucas. That's their biggest field trip.
Absolutely, yes. We've for sure been in contact with them about past projects. So this one, I think once we get sort of our project process straight, we'll be able to reach out there too.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Chloe, what's your extension?
Oh, 126. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. How's everybody doing? Keep going? Yeah? Everything right? Great. All right, so moving on to our financial reports. Nicole.
So hopefully everybody has the reports. I'm sorry that they're separate. I missed the deadline after the great QuickBooks crash of 2019. But I have all my work rebuilt. We were able to get it done. Ian from Platinum came in and helped me for a couple days. So I'm happy to say that September, October, and November have all been restored. So here we have the financial reports for November. And there was actually, we had a really good amount of revenue in November. We got a grant from California State Library for Literacy Services in the amount of $18,000. Passports brought in over $12,000 in November, so that's really exciting. And then we also got our reimbursement for internet. We apply for that and we receive it every year, which is really nice. It does go down a teeny bit every year, but it's about 90% of what we pay for internet, so it's really nice. We save a lot of money that way. And then we also got a very generous donation from the Friends in November in the amount of $29,800. And then if you do see income in the foundation line item, that's still revenue from Taste of Gina. We did finally take care of the last auction item. That person finally came in and picked it up. So now I'll be able to reimburse the foundation for that revenue. And then I just wanted to note that there are a few accounts that jumped out to me as being a little over budget, so those will need to be adjusted when we have our mid-year budget meeting, which I believe is rescheduled for February 11. Yes, so I'm looking forward to that. Nikki and I will have a draft budget ready to present to you guys that will have some adjustments made. Any questions?
Can you give us a little highlight on, you said there's a couple that
Yes.
concern you?
So if you look at the profit and loss budget versus actual July through November document, and I'm not sure what order they ended up in. If you look at page 3, right away, like mileage and parking reimbursement is over budget. That's from sending so many staff to CLA, which is a good thing, but we did end up reimbursing a lot of parking for that day. Membership dues and subscriptions, for whatever reason, is over budget. We joined a couple of new organizations this year, so that needs to be looked at. Recruitment's way over budget.
Way high, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but.
No, we opted to purchase advertising rights on governmentjobs.com for the 2 library manager positions. And it was totally a worthy expense. We ended up with 2 really great library managers. And thousands of people saw those postings. So it was totally worth it. We get as many postings as we want. Hopefully we won't need to do too much more recruiting. But that's why that line item is as high as it is. It was kind of a hefty expense.
Those all sound like perfectly legitimate reasons.
Since we're calling out things that were interesting, you already addressed all of the ones I had flagged, except I noticed that 6960 sales of products we've got, it's super small, and I was just wondering if you could tell me what that is. What does that line item represent? And is that a thing that maybe we don't actually do, or?
Which one are you looking at?
So I'm looking at 6960. It's an operating expenses, sales of product. I'm just wondering what that refers to.
No, that's a good question. I didn't want to call it sales of products because we have an income account that is called sales of products, so it's a little confusing. It should be called purchasing of products or products for resale or something like that. So the expense is what we purchase to sell to the public. And then the revenue line is sales of products income.
Okay.
So it's things that we buy like flash drives or headphones or things of that nature that we then resell to the public at cost. So we don't generate a ton of profit from it. But that's what that line item is. Sales of products is what we buy.
The other thing that I wanted to just flag, which is a happy flag, is line item 7130. Our legal fees are way under budget. So that's great.
You should be proud of yourself.
And I think a big chunk of that is probably the work that Nikki referenced as well, right? Like we're paying BDK to do some of this review, so I think it's even better once you realize that the money we are spending isn't for ridiculous stuff. For stuff that we should be spending it.
Yeah, no, it's like for valid legal advice.
That's very good. Thank you.
Good. All right, any other questions for Nicole? And so again, that budget meeting, the budget committee meeting will be, I'm sure you'll talk about it, Terry, but the budget committee meeting will be February 11th at 4, is that right? And we'll have that notice because that's open to the public. All right, perfect.
Yeah, and that would be, because that's next on the agenda, right?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in just a hot second.
Okay, so question on that.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much, Nicole. And congratulations on getting all of your data rebuilt. All right, so that brings us to our committee report. So let's just go right ahead to the budget committee.
Yeah, and obviously I didn't submit anything because it's been postponed to the 11th. And then my question to you, Nicole, would be, we will have that audit done by then, right? Is that correct?
The audit, also part of the issue with QuickBooks, the audit did get pushed back a little bit. I was very behind in getting them a few final things because I was trying to rebuild 3 months of work before the mid-year budget meeting. They should be ready to present it at the February board meeting.
Okay.
So Michael.
So we might miss it on the budget meeting, which isn't really necessary, frankly, but we'll be close enough.
I mean, I have final figures. They're just not, certified by the audit for last year. But for the mid-year budget meeting, everything is fine.
And then we'll have to get it on the calendar. And then just a little housekeeping item. Betsy and I had been the committee. We formed the committee, and will that be ratified a little later on when we talk about committee appointments?
Yeah, we're gonna just sort of make sure all of our committees are reshuffled appropriately. So we'll get to that in item 6. When we take a look at our committee members across the board, because some of our committees are going away and some of them are changing. So we'll just make sure it all kind of gets sorted out.
Okay, perfect. So February 11th, 4 o'clock.
Perfect.
And a preview, we'll talk about that.
Okay, facilities committee, Jason.
All right. So I managed to get in a written report, trying to make sure I keep myself on top of that. Again, it's just been really exciting, all of the work that we've been putting into this. And I think it's shown in the enthusiasm and participation of the public in the 4 town hall meetings we've now had. A lot of different folks showing up. I mean, it really shows how much the community cares about both libraries, both wanting to protect everything that we love about them, but also making sure we're doing everything possible to really get the most out of it, make sure the most people can participate. So just some of the highlights of what has come out of those public meetings. I think for the Bob Lucas branch, the one thing that really stood out is really wanting to increase the visibility. There's, including myself, a lot of people really brought up the fact that even those that have lived here forever drive and just cruise right on by and don't realize there's a library there, or like every time one of us drives there, we have to like really pay attention to the streets because you can't really see it. And so the need and the desire to really increase its visibility, maximizing the use of the space we have there. So I'm extremely excited, and I can't wait for all of the public to see these plans, but what's really come out of this is creating an outdoor space, a reading garden that's going to drastically increase the amount of space that's viewed as being part of the Bob Lucas library. As far as the main library, I think obviously generating a lot of excitement around, you know, for a long time we've been talking about, you know, how do we improve the, you know, compliance with ADA accessibility. But it's been really heartening to see people kind of taking on that, you know, there's two ways to deal with that, right? You can kind of take a Band-Aid approach to everything, or you can really embrace this kind of universal accessibility. And instead of just creating this entrance over here, how do you create one big central entrance that brings everybody in and that everybody can utilize regardless of their personal situation? And I think the plans that we're moving towards really do that and accomplish that. So that it's going to be really exciting to look at how that all comes out. The other good idea that came out, and I know like this is something the foundation's looking at, but looking at opportunities through this process to grow engagement and volunteerism with the library. So identifying pieces of this much larger project that we can really engage the community in actually participating in some of this work. And then just the last couple of things as far as what people should expect going forward. So the ad hoc committee met today along with ARG just to really make some final decisions based on the community town hall meetings and kind of give some final input to ARG so you can start the process of the costing of all of this work, which obviously is the key thing. You know, until we have that question answered, we can't really move forward. So we're still on pace to be able to bring a final set of plans with full costing to the board with hopefully a recommendation to approve a final plan in March. And then the next piece will be moving forward on you know, identifying our funding sources. And I know Terry's already kind of thinking about that in you know, with the budget committee as well. So that's it for the facilities committee report right now. I don't know if Terry or Nikki or Jonathan have anything else to add, or if there's any questions from the board.
I'd just like to say, having come to the town hall meeting, the second one for the main library, I went to the Bob Lucas one in the first round. I just thought it was so inspiring the way both you and Liz, right, facilitated in such a way that it's like the will of that group really kind of congealed over the course of the meeting. It just, you know, especially in the discussion that you just kind of alluded to about the entrance. And somebody, I don't even know who she was, she just said, well, can we vote, you know? And all of a sudden, it really became clear that the will of the group was, the gravity had shifted toward a particular choice, and it really felt like the community speaking. I mean, it was really, really well done. So I appreciated that process. It was beautiful.
Thanks, Betsy. And it's good to hear that kind of feedback, right? Because when you're doing these kind of things, I'm sure Katie dealt with it as well with the strategic plan. You don't really know, because you're so involved in it, you don't really know how people are taking it in. So it's good to hear that.
It just,
feedback.
it was visible in the room.
Yeah, my comment would be that happened a couple of times probably during the 4 meetings we had where it sort of came to a vote or a quasi-vote of the people in the room, and they all gravitated toward the same one that I think all of us as a committee like the best as well. And Liz had mentioned that sometimes backfires on you because
I'm
they
sure
might
it
come up
can.
with a totally different idea than what you think is the best one. But we all were in lockstep on that, the people that were there. One other thing that I think we should point out to the group is that we've had 4 meetings, and in the meeting that we had to the ad hoc committee meeting that we had today, the 4 meetings I'm referring to are the town hall meetings. We think we've taken we've ridden a chariot through town, and we've let everybody know what's going on. So I think I sort of informally elected not to go on with any more meetings to collect more data. We're going to use the data bunch that we've got now to bring all that to the board in the March meeting.
Yeah, good.
And I just want to take the opportunity too to really thank the team from ARG and the work they put in. I think, as we mentioned when we first voted and when the committee recommended ARG and recommended that the board approve them for this contract, the 2 things that we felt as a committee really put them over the top was, one, their attention to the Bob Lucas Memorial Library specifically and some of the ideas they had there, and 2, their approach to the kind of how do you engage with the community on this kind of process. And I think that's really borne some fruit and really shown, and I think makes us feel really good about that decision too, because those 2 things have been very critical in this process.
Yeah, I'd sort of like to add a comment along the lines of what Betsy was saying at the most recent Bob Lucas town hall. It was just so great to hear the representative from ARG give a really well-reasoned and I thought quite impassioned rationale for why universal design is important, right? Why designing libraries in a way that welcomes everybody and is usable for everybody is so critical. And it was great. It was sitting back. I was getting ready to stand up and shout at somebody in the room. But it was great to hear somebody from sort of our team say that in such a way that I thought was just so representative of all the discussions that we've had. Good?
I think that's it for now.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, Strategic Planning Committee. So obviously no written report because you have literally hundreds of pages of strategic planning documents. And I know we're going to come to a vote on these later on in the agenda, but I just wanted to take the opportunity now to briefly outline what you have. And all of this is pages 37 to 185. So basically you've got 3 big pieces of strategic planning documentation. One of them is the executive summary that you guys have already seen. You'll have seen that last month. And then the other 2 pieces are a little bit more in-depth, detail-oriented. So one is sort of a long-form summary of how the process was conducted, why the decisions were made that were made. And the goal here is not just to document what we did, but to also provide a baseline so that the next time a strategic planning process is undertaken, we can look back and say, oh, now we can have 2 data points, right? Because we have a good understanding of the process we went through. We can either replicate it, improve on it, adjust it, and we can get results that will have comparative value and that will be, sort of more rigorous and robust in their integrity because we've got a good documentation of the process we went through in the first place. So that's a longer form document. There's a ton of nuts and bolts in there. If you're interested in the philosophy of strategic planning, there's plenty of content for you. But I think it is important as a documentation of exactly what went down. And then the third piece is really just a pure data report. And so that's the results from our town halls, from some of the staff workshops, as well as our online survey. And if you haven't had a chance to really kind of dig into it, I would encourage you to just spend some time looking through some of the ideas that come up in that data report, because some of them are things we've talked about before, some of them are new ideas, a lot of them are really fascinating. And I think in many ways, the community interest survey and sort of the ways in which people use the library, their qualitative comment on what they like, what they don't like, why they might feel welcome or not welcome is so important. We had, I don't remember what our end result was, but some 200 plus people take this survey, and lots of people participate in our town halls, and of course the entire staff spent a lot of time thinking really critically about what they see happening. So I think it's an important document that ideally we're not just going to use internally, but hopefully as we continue to build our partnerships with groups like the town council and other groups across town, you know, these are going to be publicly available for anybody who wants them on the website. And hopefully will be a helpful resource to people thinking about how we connect different pieces of Altadena together, ways in which the library can be a driving force. So the goal is that they have value not just for our strategic and operational plans going forward, but that they have a wider utility for the community at large. So that being said, if you vote to approve and adopt the final strategic plan as it appears in your board packet today, then the strategic planning committee will cease to exist, and that will be that. Any questions or anything? Oh, we can talk about it. We can talk about the documents too when we get to item 6C. Great. Then I'll do a quick CVRA report. So Betsy and I sat down with Chloe and Nikki in last week. Time is a flat circle. But we sat down together because we said, you know, listen, our redistricting process that will happen in the spring of 2021 is going to be based on 2020 census data. And in order to draw really fair, representative, equally apportioned, good districts, we need the best possible census data we can. So we have a vested interest as a government agency in getting really good census participation, especially in those parts of town where we have traditionally not necessarily had good good representation. So, and that, you know, is primarily Census Tract 4610, although there's some other bits and pieces around town. So trying to think about ways in which we can engage, reach out, and just sort of work to dispel some of the myths, some of the assumptions, some of the concerns and fears around the census that people might have. Try to get people more information and just be visible and be a resource. And so there is a huge amount of work that's going on. I've got a very brief summary in here, but Chloe's got a super comprehensive list of all the things that are happening. And the goal is to take the library out of the library and put it where people are, whether that's at, you know, Super King or at churches or at Little League games or anywhere else folks might be congregating. So that's happening. One thing I did want to flag for you guys is we're doing an overlap with the next iteration of our Hidden Histories event. So you guys will remember we did this back in August of 2019 at the Bob Lucas Library. So we are doing another oral history event, which will be at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So 2 reasons for that. One, we had way too many people for Bob Lucas last time. And 2, we're trying to, again, pop up in locations that are not necessarily inside the 4 walls of our library or our branch. So in conjunction with that event, we're holding a census hiring fair. So we'll have somebody there from the census. There are a bunch of great local jobs that are available over the course of the census being conducted. So we'll have people, you know, can find out about that. They can apply. They can learn more. We'll have a variety of informational sessions. We'll also have community resources. And I am thrilled to be able to announce that our very own Gwen McMullins will be one of our oral history presenters. Will be sharing some stories with us. So don't miss it. It's going to be great. You'll see a bunch of stuff coming up about it as part of our Black History Month programming. But it should be really exciting. And we're working again with Veronica and Antonio, the town council reps from Census Tract 4610, which is one of the census tracts that needs better representation. We want to make sure we are counting everybody so that we are drawing our districts fairly, especially in West Altadena. So that's pretty much where we are on that. There's no recommended action, except that, you know, as this census process goes along, we're going to need volunteers to get out in the community and talk to people and just be present and be available and answer questions. And so if any of you guys have free time or a willing spirit, just check with Nikki and see, because we'd love to have you visible. and getting out there, because it's going to require a ton of staff time. So if we can supplement that with highly trained volunteers such as ourselves, that would be great. Okay, any questions or?
Just one question
Yeah.
on timing.
Yeah.
So I think waiting until the census data comes back in to start the work of creating districts makes
February
perfect sense.
23rd.
I'm just wondering, does that, because we had committed to having the first election within the districts in the fall of '22. So the question is, if we start that work in the spring of '21, does that give us enough time to stay on track with that goal?
It should. I mean, we'll know more when we, hire a demographer. But if you'll recall, the sort of penalty phase of all of this happens in 90 days, right? So if we were to get sued, which we won't because we passed the resolution intention we're good, but if we were to get sued, the entire process of town halls and district drawing and, revising the maps and all of that would have to happen in a 90-day time period. So while I don't think that we should do it in a 90-day time period, we certainly can do it in a condensed enough time that people will have plenty of time to give us feedback, but also that we'll be well ahead of any sort of filing deadlines or outreach that need to happen for those 22 elections, because we want to give people the most time. And I will say that it's likely that, and I don't know how it'll fall, but it's likely that the way the redistricting happens will impact our sequence of elections. It happened with PUSD, so like certain seats will get extended for like a year or 2 years or whatever so that they can be in rotation, because it's likely to be the case that the 5 districts that are drawn do not align with where the 5 of us or whoever's sitting up here lives. Right, so, and we'll have to make sure that the rotation of when those are elected is fair, and so, the goal is to impact the sequence of elections as little as possible, which is sort of why we hire a demographer, an expert to do this, but there will probably be some adjustment.
And then I just had a general question. What's the status of this whole thing regionally? I mean, there was that pending lawsuit in Santa Monica. Is the pace of lawsuits that was, they got some publicity about that a while back. Is that abated, or is it still going strong? Do you know?
I mean, the Santa Monica thing is ongoing. That's like gonna be appealed to the 9th Circuit. Like they've really dug in on that. They've spent their millions of dollars. So I haven't heard from CSDA or from sort of anybody in the legal world that it's ratcheted up. So as far as I can tell, it's kind of quieted a little bit. I know we got a FOIA or a public records request about some emails on this subject, but I don't know what happened with that, or if we turned those over, or I assume we did. But yeah, so maybe Nikki, you could, if you have any insight on that.
It was from a local newspaper, I believe, right?
Yeah, like the government transparency, nonprofit.
Right.
Media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
Okay.
Yeah, it came in at the very end of October, and I believe we fulfilled the request by the beginning of December.
Okay.
With BB&K.
And I think there was no follow-up from that.
No.
So, yeah.
As soon as they saw that we are proactively and wholeheartedly moving in that direction.
Did we do a resolution on that?
We did, yeah, we did a resolution of intention back in July, maybe? Yeah.
July or August or something?
Yeah, in the summer, just with the idea that if there were to be a lawsuit, the resolution, like there's no way that we could realistically undertake the process before having 2020 census data anyway. So, at best, a judge would say, you're ordered to do what you're doing. But the resolution of intention shields us from the mandatory, or from the sort of guaranteed plaintiff's fees, which is why people are filing these lawsuits, because you can just cash checks. It's a kind of a money-making scheme. So that shields us. And if anybody had a substantive claim, then the remedy would basically be to speed up the process, and we're kind of going as quickly as we can anyway.
If I could say a couple things, if you'd like, Terry and Katie too, I'd be happy to just do a little bit of research on what the status is of, other,
Yeah,
that'd be
great, would you?
jurisdictions
It could be
and
as easy as just calling up Ruben.
B and K. That's
and
kind of what I'm
asking
thinking.
him.
I'll at least start there. So I'd be happy to be prepared to come
Okay.
back next time
That'd
with
be
that
great,
question.
yeah.
The other thing I'm wondering is if Katie, if you have any idea at this point as to even a rough time frame when it would make sense to be hiring this demographer. I mean, is that,
Yeah,
because
so-
that's going to be a budget issue.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. So I think it seems to me, and I don't know if we ever heard back from the guy we reached out to, but there's sort of one guy who does this in the area.
If anyone's looking for a new career.
Yeah,
it's not
seriously,
this
like
competition.
demographer. No, but so yeah, it's not a field that has a ton of competition, and so there's just like this one guy. He lives in Burbank, but he's the sort of resident expert. So unless we wanted to hire somebody from like the East Coast and fly them in, and for a ton of expense, it's pretty much going to be this guy.
Yeah, I spoke to demographers that were in the Bay Area, and they told me that it was cost prohibitive to hire someone that's outside of your local jurisdiction. That was their understanding, that they didn't even bid on projects that were not local because of that issue. They don't really get hired because there's so many meetings and things involved that it just doesn't make sense.
Should we be looking to get him under contract?
That's
Well,
now?
yeah.
Because everybody under the sun's going to be
After
doing
the
this after
census,
2020.
it's probably going to be a
Right.
bigger demand.
I think it would be really worth reaching out and saying, listen, do we need to do an RFP? What do we need to do? But like, let's get it locked down. Because I don't want to find ourselves in a situation where it's March of 21 and we're like, oh, just kidding, like I can't do it.
I think it would be smart to try and get some cost
Yeah,
estimates before next year's
yeah,
budgeting, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's coming up.
yeah.
But, at least have an idea of what we should be budgeting.
Okay, so maybe if we can try to get some of that by the next meeting, that would be great.
Should we try to have some of it before the 11th? Do we think it might be something that could be included in this next year's budget? Is that even possible?
Well, I think the budget that we'll look at for the meeting will be sort of an adjustment budget for mid-year.
Okay.
And then the one that would be forward-thinking would be the one.
Later
that
in the year,
happens
got it,
later.
got it,
so I
right.
think-
Okay.
We budgeted for a demographer this year.
Cindy had asked me to include in the line item for consultants, $10,000 to hire a
Okay.
demographer, so it is in there.
Great. So if we need to put down a deposit or whatever, we can do it. Okay.
And he did, when I talked to Doug, I don't know, I know Katie, you talked to him as well, but when I talked to him on the phone, he did say, he would be willing to come to a board meeting. And, I think it would, he'd be willing definitely to meet with the committee and just look at the scope of the work, because there are so many services involved
Yeah.
that they do. But it's just, I think he's probably really busy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really hard to kind of
Okay, well, I'll reach out to him again and try to get him to sit down with the committee and all of us, and we'll get him locked down.
I'm just a random thought on this. It'd be interesting to explore with him the idea, since he offered to come to a board meeting. Is there some kind of, whether it's coming to a board meeting or some other kind of event, could we do something with him, since he's one of the only local people, to also build into the census outreach we're doing?
That's a good question.
Right? Like if we could have him, from a demographer's perspective, maybe talk about whatever makes sense, like what the overview of Altadena is now, how it's been changing, why it's important, even outside of our process, for people to be involved in the census.
Yeah, that's
Maybe he could share some historical things that he's been involved in, where the slightest thing ended up being this, having a huge impact.
That's a good idea. I will see what his availability is. I know he lives in Burbank, so might be possible. Great, good ideas. Okay. District Director Evaluation Process.
Okay. So on page 28 and following in the packet is the report for the ad hoc committee consisting of Terry and myself. whose charge is to just really support Nikki as she, enters, or passes through her first year with us, and to make sure that our evaluation processes are happening as they are laid out in our bylaws, which I have a little excerpt of in there. So rather than reiterate everything's in here that's in here, I'll just summarize that we had a meeting, Nikki, Terry, and I, this past month, and Nikki drafted an interim, I guess we'll call it a preliminary evaluation form. That is the preliminary evaluation process is laid out in our bylaws. So she drafted this form that we can use in our process, and BB&K looked it over. Roger Crawford, their employment attorney, signed off on it and thought it was very appropriate. And so in this report, I've just sort of laid out what we see as what our process will be at our next meeting in February, which is the 3-month mark of Nikki's employment. She will have completed her portion of this form ahead of time, and it will be distributed to the board. It's a confidential personnel document, so it won't be in the packet. And at the beginning of our February meeting, we'll have a closed session, which will be just the trustees at first to sort of get our act together and talk about the process and make sure we're all on the same page, and then invite Nikki in as well to go over what she's done with the first 3 months. Just as a reminder, Terry and Nikki and I met within a week or two after Nikki started, and she had already, of course, because she is who she is, made herself a list of all the priorities that she felt she was going to be focusing on for the first 3 months, and we discussed all that stuff. So she's basically made herself a gigantic to-do list that she's got a big giant Excel spreadsheet to keep track of, and that will be, I think I brought that to a meeting in the past so that you guys had an idea of what it is that she's working on, but that will be the basis of what we're talking about at our February meeting. Another aspect of that meeting will be all of us contributing ideas for goals and objectives for the next 3 months. We'll have the same process in May. We decided not to put a whole lot of effort, or any actually, into developing or revising the permanent, every year evaluation form that is used for the director, because that will probably be part of what the HR audit will accomplish. So it seemed like duplicative for us to try to do anything about a form when they're probably going to be looking at the one we have, making suggestions for revision. So because of the time frame of their work, I think it will be ready in plenty of time for our November meeting, when we'll do a 1-year evaluation. So Roger said there's really no formal need for us to, as a board, approve of this form. It was in your packet, so if anybody looked through it and thought there was anything you would suggest about it, we could certainly be open to ideas about edits or changes to it, but it doesn't require our formal voting on it to approve of it. So that's kind of where we stand. So I guess what I would like to do is to have us all be clear on kind of our time frame, because we're going to all want to be able to have gotten your part of the document in advance enough of the February meeting that we have time to consider it and so on. So I don't know if we can just, I don't know if you have a time frame in mind for yourself, Nikki, about when you would already be planning to be ready to pass that on to us.
Yeah, so technically we had established 10 goals, so there's going to be 10 of them on here, but I just wanted to show what the template would be. And I'm tracking all of them, so I could probably have it to you guys by the first Friday in February, if that would be
Sure.
Good.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just start working on it now. I'm a stickler for deadlines, so.
We love that about you.
February 4th would technically be 3 months, so I'll have at least completed the evaluation period.
Okay.
And so you'll want our comments back then by when?
Let's see.
The 12th would be the deadline for including stuff in the packet. I mean, I know this
Yep.
doesn't go in the packet,
Mhm.
but if we just, that gives everybody a little bit more than a week. Do you think people need more than that?
Wait, you said the first Friday in February, that's less than a week.
Oh, sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you said the 4th.
Um,
Got it.
So if what you, so maybe the following Wednesday would be
Yeah, the 19th.
19th? Yeah.
Okay.
Can we say that?
Sure.
Okay.
And we send those to you, to Ruben, to, where do we send that?
Why don't you send it to me, and I'll roll it all up into the form that we bring to the closed session, that I'll bring to the closed session
Okay.
at the 24th.
And so, sorry, I know you laid all this out in your report, I just want to make sure I understand. So Nikki fills out her part, we get that by the 7th. We fill out our part, like our response, evaluation and comments, by the 19th, send that to you. Do we see everybody's stuff collated? Like, will we see everybody's comments together before that closed session meeting, or no?
That would be useful, I think,
It would
don't you
be,
think?
yeah, I do.
So let me,
Maybe if we move our deadline back to the 17th?
that's just what I was thinking.
Is that,
Yes,
yeah?
that would help.
Okay.
To the 17th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need our comments to you by the 17th, and then that will give you some time to.
Yeah, I'll
collate
make my
everything.
deadline the 21st
Okay.
to get back to you. And in the text of my report, I just want to remind everybody, because this was Roger's reminder, that the completed form will be distributed confidentially via email to each trustee, along with, and I guess I'll add this statement, reminding everyone that this distribution is for informational purposes only. It's a confidential personnel record, not to be discussed outside of closed session, and that any discussion on the evaluation will happen in the closed session.
Okay, not to be that guy, but I just have a real quick Brown Act question.
Okay.
So, are we at any risk of violating the serial meeting thing? Because like, if I send you something and then you pass people's comments back, do you see what I mean? Like, is that
Good
an issue,
question.
or do we need to like disclaimer that in some way, shape, or form?
I don't know.
Just wait until the closed session.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me find out. I'll
Okay.
check with
All
her.
right.
Because I don't think they got down into the weeds of this part of
Right,
what
right,
we were
right.
talking about,
I just,
so.
yeah, it just strikes me as a
No, you're
potential
absolutely
red
right.
flag.
You're gonna
Good.
compile it anyway.
Especially since.
Yeah.
You're gonna compile it.
Yeah, I
Right,
mean, it's
and we
just
had a year
it's-
of sessions about it.
Yeah,
so.
it's a balance between, everybody having enough time with the information to, do a good job of the evaluation process versus not breaking the law.
Well, and that's where it may be the case that it needs to go to somebody who is not a trustee to collate it, right? Because if, for example, Nikki passes her part of it to a lawyer, the lawyer sends it to us, we send our responses back to the lawyer BCCs all of us, that's not a Brown Act
Yeah,
issue, right? But
Got
if
it.
you do it, then it is.
Got it.
So that's
Yes,
my
all right.
concern.
Okay.
So,
That's all right. It's
I'll
worth it to
ask the
not break the
attorney.
Still a
law.
lot less money than fees for not doing it.
Yup. That's a true story.
Okay, thanks for working that out with me. I'm sure we're going to do it right.
We'll do the Brown Act. Perfect. That's great. And just, I think that evaluation template looks great. I think it's totally straight ahead. It makes sense.
Yep.
You
Thanks to
understand.
Nikki. Terry had some nice tweaks, so I think it's, we'll try it. We'll see if it works,
Yeah.
and if we need to tweak it again for May, we can.
Okay. Great. Good. All right. Guys, we are on unfinished business. How's everybody doing? Good? Hanging in there? Okay. All right, so 6A, review committee membership. So basically,
Trustee reports.
Oh, sorry, did I skip those? I totally skipped them. They were at the bottom. Apologies. Just kidding. I was excited, but yeah, that's all right. I'll read it. Trustee reports. Do you have a report?
I do.
Okay.
So the first thing, real quick, I will not be at the February meeting out of the country, so I'll actually get whatever comments or feedback I have on eval out before I leave. And then the other thing I just wanted to encourage everybody to do is there's a national library advocacy organization called everylibrary.org. I actually engaged through their Facebook page, and they really try to engage folks in taking action on different library issues. And there was one thing popped up 2 weeks ago that just absolutely terrified me. And I would encourage, and this is part of the reason why I'm encouraging folks to follow this site. So the Missouri State Legislature just passed a new law, or I don't know if they passed it, but they're pushing it, that would allow local municipalities to institute banned book lists.
What?
And not only that, but if they institute that list and a librarian violates it,
What?
they could be brought up for criminal charges. Like a misdemeanor against a librarian for like checking out a book. Like it's the most like just scary 1984 just kind of.
Yes.
It is. It is many things.
What waste tax is?
Yeah, yeah, and so they're pretty well organized. It's one of those things like a lot of other organizations. You click a couple buttons, it automatically shoots off a letter for you. But it's just we live in such a kind of happy place where we don't have to deal with this kind of stuff. So it's really good to see, and I think it really goes to show to just remind folks of the history of what librarian professionals have done when we face this kind of stuff in the country, right? If thinking back to the Patriot Act and those amazing librarians in Connecticut that risked jail time to stop this kind of stuff. So it's everylibrary.org, or you can like their Facebook page as well. That's all I got.
Yeah,
I got a little bit. Well, Missouri, look out, Missouri, because librarians are feisty about the First Amendment. Yeah. They'll have a fight on their hands, and I'm sure ALA is all over that one too. So, I did not have an agenda item for government relations, but I just did want to give a little bit of an update on the governor's budget, because there were a couple things, and thanks to Nikki for forwarding me stuff from the public library listserv about it, that CLA is on top of. Items in the governor's budget that affect libraries. One is $1 million for lunches in libraries during the summertime, and we are not really equipped to be a distributor of that, or we just don't have the space to be a distributor of that kind of program ourselves. But Nikki tells me that Amanda's in touch with PUSD and talking about cooperating with them to provide some kind of pop-up programming in the summertime issues.
For parks and recreation days.
Yeah. So anyway, we're being involved in that in the way that we can, so that's exciting. There's another $1 million for an interesting initiative called Zip Books, which I didn't know anything about until I read about it, and it's interesting to me professionally because it's similar to something I'm doing in my own library, which is to enhance the process of interlibrary loan by, instead of just, somebody comes in here and needs a book that we don't have, asking for it from another library and have that library send their copy, to empower patrons to buy a copy used and then donate it. The money that's in the budget would pay for that purchase, and then it can get donated and added to the library's collection. So it's just an interesting way to patch holes in the collection of patrons needing things that their own library doesn't have, with state money. So it's we're just going to stay tuned and to see maybe if that's something that we could benefit from. But I just thought it was a pretty innovative idea of ways to, again, increase access across the board. There is another $900 million over 5 years just to go toward the broadband initiative that has been kind of ongoing. So that's just an additional thing in the governor's budget this year. So I have a legible note to myself. Oh yeah, no, irrelevant. So anyway, that's all I wanted to tell you about what I heard about the governor's budget.
Can I ask a question about zip books? We have several people who come and see a book in the bookstore and they say, oh, this should be in the library's collection. So if they recommend it, they can buy it from our bookstore and give it. Is the used book program instead of?
No, the zip book program is actually planned to be done through Amazon, to buy used books through Amazon.
So you have to buy it. So basically, if you had the same copy of a book in the Friends bookstore, you couldn't buy it from there. You would have to buy it.
No, what I would suggest is if you've got a book in the Friends bookstore that belongs in the collection, put it in the collection. I mean, why does anybody have to buy anything? It's, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just know in my own library, a kid will ask for a book. It's actually one we theoretically own, but it's lost. And I don't want to invest $20 in a new copy. So I don't use Amazon because I don't like Amazon. And I wish the state didn't either, but that's not up to me. I use ABE, used books. And so I buy a copy for $3, and it might have a label or a sticker or a little tiny bit of writing in it, but then I can replace the lost copy, and then that kid who had that book under his bed the whole time will bring back the one that was missing, and then I haven't wasted money, and then we have two. So I think the whole idea of using used books as a way to supplement collection development, I think is a really great idea. So we'll see what happens. And $1 million is a lot of money.
It is. I have no report.
Do you have something, Gwen?
No, I have no report.
Oh, okay.
I've been missing in action for 3 months.
Welcome back.
Just a couple things from me, and I'll be at least the third person tonight to, compliment the string quartet program we had. It was a big success, as you heard. And another thing that I don't think I mentioned is that they'll have different formats each time. So we'll have a woodwind event, we'll have a horn, or a brass event. So they're really doing a good job with that. But the poignant moment I had as I walked in, because there was no place to park, I parked in Mariposa, was someone struggling through the grass with their walker to try to get to the bridge to take it over, etc. That right there was enough to keep me fired up about this ADA stuff we're working on for the next year. I almost said something, but I did not. And then on a personal note, I donated some photographs from when I used to work here in the paper years ago, and to the Aldina Historical Society, and they're mounting a show of mine and some other photojournalists that will open on the 8th, I believe, February. So you guys should go. There'll be a little reception and so on. But there continues to be community-wide a focus on how, how we could have a good source of journalism and communication here in Altadena, and that's just one step in that direction. At the same time, a little bit after that, they asked me, this is very humbling, to do an oral history, which I did. I taped an oral history. And it was humbling because I'm old enough now to give an oral history. But that was a really nice thing to hook up with the Historical Society that way. So just a shout out to them. And then one final thing, that is, I know we've been trying to keep an eye on the local schools, and the ACONA meeting tomorrow night will have a talk about the closure of some of the local schools. So just an FYI.
Where is that meeting?
Can I just add a couple things?
Please,
to that?
yeah.
So I have in my calendar, and I won't be able to make it, but I do have in my calendar, Saturday, February 1st, 2 to 4 p.m., Altadena Historical Society event on the press photography. So I think that's this Saturday.
Which day is it?
This Saturday, the 1st, from 2 to 4.
I better adjust my calendar.
Okay. I mean, double check me. I might be wrong, but
Yeah, I'll double
I knew
check.
about it because I'm out of town, so I knew I was going to.
If it's different than that, I'll email you.
Okay. I just circle back to the Mount Low Chamber Players. In case anybody here doesn't know, the mastermind behind that is our own Monica Hubbard. She's the one who decided we needed chamber music in this town, and she's the one who found the musicians and did a fundraising event that my husband and I went to in somebody's home where they had a concert with some of those players to be able to raise money. You know, so it's Monica who really deserves a lot of credit for making that happen.
Yeah, and I saw her even, and I thanked her on behalf of the board for doing that. She's very appreciative.
Well, and that's one of the things that I wrote that down because I know that we have had various things on second Saturday. And it seems to me that we need to also ask some of the schools, the high schools. There's a jazz band over at John Muir. PHS used to have a jazz band. They put on a wonderful Christmas program up here at Washington Middle School. And also down at Elliott, they put on a wonderful performance. So sometimes, you know, I know that we pay these people to come. It would be nice to be able to donate sometimes to our public schools because they do, you know, they've taken many of those, the music out of the schools. And so it would be really great to reach out as a to have them be partnering with us in some way or another.
No, I agree, and I think
I don't know whether you thought about it or not.
Well, I know, and I'm sure Nikki you can speak to this more, but I know a lot of times we have school groups come in as the opening act.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a local high school or a middle school come in and play an opener, which is great.
That's
and,
wonderful.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, definitely.
It brings the kids into the library
and it brings all their parents
too.
and all their friends, and it's really great.
Are you suggesting we should offer to donate something to them as well to kind of show that we appreciate that they are performers?
I definitely would say that because I believe in most instances we're paying for some of those musicians to come.
Yeah.
Am I not?
We definitely are, and
I think it's a part of
the youth groups do get an honorarium.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
That's great. And that comes out of the second Saturday budget?
Yes.
It's in your budget.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Boom.
Sorry, I just love to talk about public schools. Look at me sometimes.
I already gave a big spiel, but I will say just one quick thing on the oral history front, Terry, because you reminded me. Going up very soon, as soon as we get the publicity out for the Hidden Histories event, there will be a library website, and it'll be altoonalibrary.org/hidden histories, and we'll have not only links to our previous program, but we'll have all the historical societies' oral history content will be accessible from our website as well. So people can go and listen to you, they can listen to any of the other oral histories that Historical has collected in theirs. When is the next event? It's going to be Sunday the 23rd, Sunday, February 23rd. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's book sale.
Oh, yeah. 22nd, 23rd.
Is there a book sale?
Okay. Sometimes when we have a lot of exciting things happen, there are only so many weekends.
Well, that's at the...
It's at the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that'll be more people coming to Altadena. They can only spend so many hours at a
The
book
flyers of the book sale, they can buy them.
What time
fill their
is it?
trunk.
It'll be in the afternoon.
Because I know, like last year, I helped Veronica, so now somebody else might, okay, don't worry about it.
Well, we can relieve you of cashier duties for a while.
Yeah, the program will run from 2 to 4. There'll be some community stuff beforehand, so probably like 1 to 4, maybe 1 to 5. So it'll be Sunday afternoon.
should advertise it at the book fair
Yeah,
on Saturday
absolutely.
for people.
No,
over
absolutely.
there.
And this is,
Full advertising.
that's right. And this is, you know, I think a problem that it's like it's a good trouble kind of problem that we're gonna have going forward is there's gonna be stuff happening, in multiple places at multiple times. And I think that, you know, that's ultimately a positive. We just have to kind of align our messaging so that if people aren't hitting one thing, they're hitting another thing. Okay. Now we're on to unfinished business. All right, so item 6A, review of committee membership. So this was sort of continued over from last month, with the idea being that we want to make sure that we reshuffle our committees appropriately so everybody's doing what they want to be doing. Just to sort of look ahead a little bit, I think, you know, also bear in mind our liaising work. So whoever our liaisons are, the Friends, the Foundation, the Government Relations liaison, we want to make sure that everybody's, again, doing what they want to do, and that we're moving people around enough that there's a good, consistent moving water through all of our support groups. So just reviewing briefly our committee membership, if we may. So presently on the Budget Committee are Betsy and Terry. The Facilities Committee is Jason and Terry. The Strategic Planning Committee is Jason and myself, but hopefully that will very shortly cease to be an issue. CVRA is myself and Betsy, and the District Director Evaluation Process is Betsy and Terry. So I think one of the big reshuffles is on the Budget Committee. So traditionally, I think we'd have the president and then somebody else. That seems to me to be a somewhat reasonable thing, although there is a rationale to have the president and the board secretary on it. So in case the president gets hit by a bus, somebody has been in those budget conversations who would be presiding. So. So that would be an option. So I guess before taking action, because I can make committee appointments unilaterally, I just like to get some feedback from you guys and get a sense of what you feel like would be equitable, desirable, good. If you want to do something else, do the same thing.
You definitely should be on the Budget Committee.
Yeah,
I think that's true. So that means either one or both of us should go off of it.
Right.
Which committee?
Budget.
Are you on budget? I thought, Terry.
Terry and I have been the Budget Committee, but Katie should be on it as president.
Any thoughts?
Well, I would speak to the budget committee, or I'd love to keep going on that, because I feel that's where one of my areas of expertise is in that. So I think I can be a big asset on it, especially because we're now approaching the time where we would start to look at financing, and I've already done some legwork on that. So.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well then I think maybe the easiest thing is just to swap out Betsy and myself for the Budget Committee. So we'll leave everything else the same, but I'll rotate onto the Budget Committee and Betsy will rotate off.
Okay.
Is that good with everybody?
That's good.
I did have one question because in my report, that I just gave, I called us something different than the agenda did. So I just need some clarification as to what this committee should be called, the personnel one. Because I had thought we had called ourselves an ad hoc HR committee, and the agenda called us the District Director Evaluation Committee, I think is.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. I just left it as District Director Evaluation Process. In the board meeting, it was like an ad hoc committee to do all these things, but it wasn't clear if there was like a title. So if it's HR or personnel, whatever.
I don't know that it really matters, but let's.
But I think it's good to clarify it in that way.
Yeah. Well, I think it speaks to the scope of work, right? So if it's the HR, the personnel committee, that's sort of that's a big picture thing. But if it's just district director evaluation, then, I mean.
That's fine.
Is that
So then just to be proper, should I next month move to correct these minutes to change the name of this committee, or I don't know, does it matter?
I think it's fine.
Okay, so we'll just know that
We'll
that's
just
what
know
we're
that
calling.
that's what it is, yeah.
So,
Well, because I think technically, the board only has the authority to evaluate the district director. We don't have any authority to evaluate employees because they all report to her, right, and not to us. So, yeah, that seems, we'll just call it that. That seems reasonable. Okay, so then on 6A, the action that I'm taking is I am appointing myself to the budget committee and removing Betsy from it. And then in terms of our liaisons, we wanted to table this to make sure, Gwen, that you were here. And so what we had talked about last month was leaving Betsy in her current position as government relations liaison and swapping Terry and Jason on the Friends and Foundation work. But Gwen, we wanted to get input from you.
Well, I've already been on the foundation board several times.
Right.
And I can be the alternate to the Friends board is fine.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead with that.
If it's okay to have two on there.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So Jason, you'll be the liaison to the foundation, and Terry, you'll be the liaison to the Friends. Perfect. Great. All right, 6C. So this is our big strategic plan moment. So what we're asking for is a motion to adapt and approve the strategic plan as presented in its final form to your board packet. So maybe if I could get a motion to do that in a second, then we could undertake any discussion we need to undertake.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, perfect. Moved and seconded.
Did you hear Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen, I think we got you. Yeah. So, all right. Any discussion, questions, comments?
Only for 3 years?
Yeah, it's for 3 years. So the thinking is we may well, at the end of 3 years, decide to have exactly this big strategic plan with a revised operating plan, right? So that seems highly likely. We're not going to accomplish all of our goals and like be done and have solved all of our challenges in 3 years. But the idea is that we may, especially in the course of this facilities process, uncover new priorities or new goals that we may need to, adjust this sort of high-level architecture in light of our redistricting process. So the idea is to leave it in place for 3 years with an operational plan that updates goals and objectives every year in light of the progress we made. And then in 2023, we can, appoint a new committee to look at it. And it may be that the committee says, yep, let's just run some review, keep doing it, and that would be totally fine.
Yeah, just had a couple of comments.
Please.
I think it's terrific, everyone. Congratulations to Kelly, to Jason for getting this together. That raw data is just gold. I mean, I was looking, trying to do a bit of a deep dive into that. And there's some interesting things that emerged. I've always been a little worried that as we get our groups together and talk about the library, that we were probably a little unbalanced geographically, that we might be getting a little bit more on the west side of the lake than on the east side of the lake, given our, have a facility that we talked about that before. But when you look at where the census tract, people do their census tracts were, it was pretty evenly split. And it's a small sample, but I was really kind of hard to hear that. Another data point that really got my attention, and we talked about it a little bit tonight in various forms, is that idea that, my thing's so hopelessly shuffled, I can't pull the paper out, but 55% or something like that was getting the information about the library from our website, and another really high percentage was getting it from Nextdoor. And that worried me a little bit, and I just wanted to make that comment. I used an anecdote today in our facilities meeting that I talked to one neighbor who knew that we were getting ready to do a renovation on the library that was going to cost $40 million.
post. Yes, it's like a one-way communication, which is a very bizarre way of doing
And if
things.
next sort of like what you say, they'll block you. So I'm all for it. I just,
Yeah.
get really nasty.
But if it is a channel where people are looking for information from us, even if it's just a one-way broadcast from us, I think it's critical that we are broadcasting.
Or click here to take a survey.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're double checking on that, yeah.
And I wonder how often do they update some of that, because years ago, about 5-6 years ago, we were talking about $40 million. So I'm wondering, do they update it at some point or another? How did, is that figure something that they have kept on there because they heard that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Nextdoor is just totally unfiltered, unmoderated, random folks saying, yeah, just people saying whatever.
Get when you don't have a library.
Yeah, whatever.
Even when you do.
Say. So it's not fact checked or anything.
Nobody's fact.
No. Well, hopefully, yeah, but it's crowdsourced fact checking, which presents its own challenges. Yeah.
Can I say a few things?
Please.
I also want to echo deep gratitude, you guys. And in conjunction with Chloe's design, it's so nice to have a beautiful document that is useful. I mean, so many times I think organizations go through a process like this and put it in a binder and put it on a shelf, and that's the last anybody's heard of it. So I did have one question though. On page 187, in the strategic priorities and objectives section, I'm wondering if there's something missing there, because item 1B says train all staff on identified skills, competencies, including but not limited to, colon.
Oh, that's actually in the operational plan, which is going to be item 7A. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just in the strategic
Oh, God, I see,
plan.
I'm seeing,
Sorry,
okay, sorry,
yeah.
I'm ahead. I just went to my notes. Okay, I'll hold my comment.
But we'll get to that. Anything else on strategic plan documents?
Let's prove it.
Okay. Then I'd like to call the vote on this. All those in favor of approving and adopting the strategic plan as presented here, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Enthusiastic.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Katie.
Well, thank you, entire staff team. It was absolutely a team effort. And I hereby declare the strategic planning committee dissolved. Yay! All right, so the exciting news is the outcome of the strategic planning process is our operational plan, which is, page 186. So Nikki, do you want to talk about that a little bit before we get into it? Okay.
Okay, so I met with the management team. Obviously, we approved the executive summary in December, so we wanted to make sure that we had agreed that those were going to be our strategic priorities. So I met with them, I believe it was January 7th, and we, as the 10 of us on the management team, established what these overarching goals would be as it relates to the operational plan. From there, and it was really amazingly smooth. What do you say, Jonathan? Everybody was superly in agreement. It was, I've done these brainstorming sessions in the past, and sometimes you don't always get consensus, but everybody was really on board with all of these overarching goals. From there, we created a shared document. Each manager went in and added more specific objectives. So from here, and the reason you see this colon, is that we have an even more detailed objective plan. So that bullet should have probably said, train all staff on identified skills and competencies. Because our internal document has a very detailed list, including like training on diversity, inclusion, and equity, training on emergency preparedness, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a higher level document because it's honestly, it's already pretty long, I'm sure you think, and then the one that we have internally has more metrics, basically, so that we can say whether or not we achieved those things. We're putting it into the planner software through the the office software where we're going to be able to set deadlines and then track where we're at. The plan is to probably come back every 3 months and update you on where we're at with the operational plan, basically. But we did, in addition to the managers meeting and all of us coming up with our goals and objectives together, we then shared the internal document with all of the staff so that they could review it, provide feedback, and make sure that we have complete buy-in from the staff as a whole before we then brought it forward to present to the board. So I feel really confident that the staff feel really good about the things we've identified. And again, they speak specifically to those strategic priorities we developed through the strategic plan. And this document will change every year. So the plan will be to carry this one forward through December. We'll probably develop the next year's plan in December so that we'll present it to the board then, and then it will be for the full calendar year next time.
So a couple of questions on how we use the operational plan to sort of measure progress. So is the idea that we keep coming back to this document and we get updates on basically the extent to which these things are accomplished or not accomplished, or how do you envision sort of this document being used in an evaluative way?
Well, so Chloe's still working on putting all of it into the planner software. The plan for me with the management team is to meet with them the day after the board meeting. So I have a meeting tomorrow with them where we're going to walk them through what it will look like to establish deadlines. So they'll set deadlines based on what goals or objectives that they've put into the document itself. And then they're able to track their progress. So what I'm envisioning is I'll speak to the staff empowerment, administrative enhancements, engaging and inclusive programs. So when I come back to the board, I'll probably bullet some of the things that we've achieved in those 3 months specific to those overarching goals. If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Rather than every little thing that we
Right, because it seems like there's a balance between knowing where we are on a high level and sort of granular detail, which would be exhausting. One just sort of thing that jumped out at me in 3A, Aging Inclusive Programming, I noticed that we called out a lot of specific groups, but not the LGBTQ plus community, and I was wondering if that was intentional, unintentional.
I'm not sure, so
Okay.
I will ask.
Okay.
It's probably oversight.
Nikki, my perception, and I want to sort of test my understanding, is that at a sort of 10,000-foot view, the operational goals for the next year are, in some ways, really getting our house in order and engaging in a sort of community-wide listening campaign.
Yes.
Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I mean, this year, kind of the direction that I provided, especially based on sitting through the 1 day of strategic planning that I did on my first day of work here, was that the staff expressed the need to be given the tools and resources they need to be successful carrying this plan forward. So I had, given direction to the management team to really think about what we could do to make staff feel confident to be able to carry the work forward. So that guided a lot of what was identified here. And then also the listening piece for sure. So getting out, trying to meet and talk to as many people as we can. That was my goal in this first year, but I mean, we want to make sure that we're not just assuming we know what people want. We actually want to talk to them. So I think we'll see more of that in the subsequent years.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So if I could please get a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the operation.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any issues? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Perfect. So operational plan is approved. Fantastic. And please, I think also convey our thanks to the staff for thinking so deeply and thoroughly about how to really embody these goals over the course of this year. It's exciting to see. All right, that brings us to item 7B, review and approval of the DDC rooftop project. Jonathan, do you want to talk about this a little bit? Okay.
So last month we brought up the RFP to go and do this DDC project, which is digital direct controls for systems because they're analog systems we have right now. And so we sent out the bid. We received a response, and the response is from our company that is ACS Air Conditioning Solutions. And currently they take care of our maintenance and of our maintenance of our machines, and they've done such a great job over the past 3 years. Actually 3 years. They've maintained it to. I always go back to Betsy's comment. I have never felt this library during the summer as cool as it's been, or as as comfortable, and that's what we're trying to do. Nikki and I were discussing at work line. We were discussing about. She says you're into preventive maintenance. Yes, PMs is high on my list. I believe if you prevent it now, so much for my body. Prevent it now, we take care of everything else. So, but anyway, so we did get the analysis, and one of the things that was brought up at the last meeting was timeline. I think you brought up the timeline, Katie. And so, as you've noticed in the proposal that they sent us, they have a very detailed timeline.
Very detailed.
Okay. And so I spoke with him after I received the RFP. I spoke to him. My name is Marcus Navidad. He's the project manager for this project. Yes, there'll be some noise. I let our staff know that there'll be some inconveniences for the moment, but this will, in the long run, will help with our infrastructure in the future when we do decide to change over to brand new air handlers. For now, the sensors will be updated, and all we have to do is when we add new HVAC units, whenever we add them in, they'll just be connected to our new controllers that will be there. The controllers, again, as I said before, will be reachable from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. So we can program, we can pinpoint each. Right now there's 6 different zones. Each unit has 6 different zones, and there's 6 different zones for each library here. Each unit carries the south unit takes care of the south unit takes care of the children's area and the downstairs area, and the north unit takes care of basically the rest of the building. There are zones for each of these units. I can place each thermostat when I go into the roof. I can place each thermostat at the same temperature, and in each room, the zones will be either an oven or a freezer, and it's all set at the same temperature. So right now, there are different zones. What these sensors will do now is they will pinpoint each room, so the fluctuations will all go away in a sense. I talked to our project manager, and he assured me that that's what's going to happen. If there's any other other stuff that we have to address, yes, we will do that. But this will help with our fluctuations of heating and cooling that we do yearly, and so that I will make some people downstairs very happy. and so that way, it's especially because we do have a small meeting room, and in the small meeting room that we have, it takes care of downstairs. But if anyone's in that room, it is nothing. Yeah, it gets so bad. But so if we adjust it accordingly with the pinpointing the temperatures, this will help alleviate that. And another thing, it's part of our strategic plan. you do this, sorry. I did, I'm on after this that went to, I've done safety tours also for, yes, for 2 gentlemen, for Terry and Jason already. And I know we discussed it with Betsy, but we're doing a safety tour probably next week, Gwen. And I would like you to join us for that. I sent out an invite. And what we do is we do these safety tours for our employees, current and new ones. We show them the whole building. So I sent out an invite for next Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So if you're able to come, that'd be great.
And I can testify those thermostats do all stay the same temperature. Up on the roof.
So let me ask you about the insulation. How is that, how is the insulation in this total building? Is it up to code or? Because that has a lot to do with sometimes the temperature and how it.
Because of the zones that we have there, they are this older unit. The sensors are older unit. And yes, of course, there's a lot of things that other insulation with the weather stripping and everything else. I am in the process of right now of getting a device that will check each of my air pockets or my areas where air leaks are coming out of, so that way we can address those areas. One of the things that we've already done so far this year is just recently is there were some cracked windows that have been cracked for years, and we replaced them. So they're now tempered and replaced. And so that would help a lot with, because one of them had a little hole in it. We took care of that. And so, and that's what we're doing. We're addressing those slowly.
Okay, any other questions for?
I do have one. So Jonathan, you mentioned noise, which is understandable. Is there going to be any disruption at all in hours or open times or?
Well, the only disruption will be my sleep, because these guys wake up very early, and they start. I mean, they start super early. So that most of the stuff that any type of demolition that would have to do, they would try to probably do that early in the morning. Any type of demolition they would have to do with the sensors would probably be doing, or they'll try to make it as painless as possible for everyone. But also another thing too, Christopher and I, because we're going to integrate this with his the internet here, so that way we can integrate it with his system, so that way we can we have a meeting with the project committee sometime after this is taken care of. Once we send over the contract, then we'll take care of that. But if there's any other questions that you would like me to ask them that I haven't addressed, I don't know. I'll let you know.
I mean, my question from last time about timeline, I think has been more than adequately addressed, right? I really appreciate the detail in their responses. Terrific, and I think there's just a lot of confidence in their work.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great company.
Well, they're a local company too.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're a local company.
Any other questions for Jonathan? All right, then I'd like a motion to approve the DDC rooftop project as presented here. And we want to also give the director authority to sign the contract with ACS. So if I can get a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect, moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments? Great, okay, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, perfect. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for making that happen. All right, so last item in new business is the review and approval of our updated volunteer policy that's found on pages 207 through 211 of your board packet. If you do want to speak to that briefly?
Okay, so before I even got here, Cindy forwarded me several emails, one of which was the volunteer policy that she had been working on with me. My understanding is that we did not have one at all before this. it had already gone to BB&K once for review. There was many questions that they had that we had to resolve. Some of which were about like how old a juvenile has to be in order to volunteer. That we discovered was 14. So we did include in this policy that you can be under 13 as long as you're here with parents, meaning we want to encourage family volunteer activities. So we incorporated that in. The other big reason I think Cindy was working on this is there's been, and I'm sure it's not just libraries, this need to make sure you're doing background checks on the people that volunteer for you so that you're not liable in the event that something happens. So part of this was also including a background check process. So in terms of the fiscal impact, working with Nicole, we believe it's going to cost about $67 a person. The plan, we still have to figure out whether or not we have to retroactively background check everyone. That is going to be my assumption. But we included what that process looks like. The one thing we did was include what we're calling an introductory period. Because one thing in the 20 years I've worked in libraries, a lot of times people think they want to volunteer, and then you get them in, you train them for one day, and they never come back. So I would hate to see us spend all this money background checking people that volunteer once and then don't return. So we included a 1-month introductory period to make sure that they're a good fit in terms of volunteering for us, and then we'll give them another month to go get the background check to take place. Let me see, is there anything else? There are several other forms. We didn't include those, like BB&K reviewed the release of liability form. So a lot of times if it's just a one-off volunteer activity, so like I think about something like the day that we helped string the lights or CTLA, they wouldn't have to become a formal volunteer with us. They could sign this release of liability form, which BB&K also approved. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions. This has gone through extensive review. Uni and I went back and forth on it several times. So I think it's a good place to start.
Is that,
Go ahead, please.
is that $67 and it's a fingerprint, but is it also some kind of background check?
It's the live scan service, so they run your fingerprints against others in the criminal database.
Okay, so is there, so let's say they fingerprint someone that might not have a record or a rap sheet or something. Is there a standard down about when you not take, some level of criminality that?
We included kind of open language just to say, depending on the results of your live scan, we may or may not continue with the volunteer.
Okay, so that's an objective thing that is done. I guess it sounds like we Grand Theft Auto's okay, but.
Well, I mean, it especially, the reason there's this push is we want to make sure that the volunteers can be around children.
Okay.
Or minors.
Gotcha, I understand now.
I had a couple questions about the mechanism by which people get those background checks done. Do they have to go somewhere to do it? Like in the past when I've done this kind of thing, you have to like go to a specific office and it takes like a whole bunch of time. Do we think that this may be an impediment to people volunteering? Like, 'cause it's,
Potentially.
yeah.
I mean, it was integrated in Glendale when I first got there, and there were people that quit the like the Friends Board and
Right.
others that just were not willing to go through the process.
Okay.
I know when I volunteered in 5 acres, they had a local place right here in Pasadena.
Yeah.
that you could go to.
It's close by, I think.
Yeah.
It's not close for us.
Yeah, you know, anytime you introduce like a hurdle for people to jump over, it always has an impact. And so, you know, just I want to make sure that we're prepared for people to say, I'm not going to do this, you know. And that's fine, but I think, you know, making sure that there's a safety and liability.
I think
guardrail in
that's
place
why,
with it.
yeah, I'm glad and I think it was one of the days Uni and I were meeting, and I was like, what if we like put them on probation? And I think that's a good way, because giving them a month to figure out if it's really something they're invested in doing, I think they're probably going to be more amenable to going and getting background checked.
What about TV testing?
just wanna make sure that we're protecting the district.
A lot of ordinance.
For everybody, or for just people that go around kids? And like with us, and the friends, we have people that come in maybe once a month. Some come in, like Fred, he comes in every time, our time, but the rest of them, we don't really deal with kids at all, we're downstairs in the basement. So, so I'm just asking, because I know at schools, have to do hamburgers.
That's still a conversation we're gonna need to have, but I mean, my personal feeling is that a volunteer could potentially be in any area of the building at some point, so for the sake of our own protection, we should probably require all people.
I mean, it's kind of an all or nothing thing.
Yeah.
We can't.
Kids that like the scouts and the ones that do the community service for high school get be able to graduate.
No, it's for adults.
Okay.
Yeah, not minors.
I have a question about that, about the fact that people have to do that at schools, because I did, and I'm wondering if there's any way for anyone who has already gone through this process because they're involved in some other organization to be able to use the information that's already been generated. I mean, every school employee has to go get fingerprinted. So it would be nice if that data could be shared. I don't know if that's possible.
I would have to check with the Department of Justice if they would be willing to release the records to a different entity. They're a little particular on that.
Or, I don't know, maybe it could be a matter of I mean, if it's a matter of me signing off and saying, yes, I allow you to share my data, maybe that would be an option.
That would be a good idea.
Sycamore Hathaway, they said that it doesn't matter, you have to go.
You do.
And how often do people have to renew that? I mean, is it a one and done thing, like I get fingerprinted once and I'm good forever?
Because then now I can go rub a
Now I'm
bank.
gonna go, oh my God. I mean, but you know what I mean, like realistically, is it a thing where like every 5 years, every 10 years, you would need to
I worked in school
re-up?
for over 20, 30 years, I only did it.
I only did it once. Another thing I would wonder is there ever the possibility of like a mobile fingerprinting unit that, Saturday is fingerprinting day and they have a, I don't know, RV out in the parking lot where they have their equipment and all volunteers could go. I have no idea if that exists, but if it did, that would be a great way to get all of our volunteers done.
Well, and, I mean, we have a passport services office, and a lot of times when you need a visa, you have to do the live scan stuff anyway. So I wonder if there's any,
We've talked about it.
Yeah.
The investment of the machine itself is not that great. It's just a matter of staff time and training and offsetting the passport appointments with the live scan.
Okay.
There's a lot more revenue to be generated from passports than from live scan.
but that makes sense. It's worth looking into this one-off, maybe.
So with this one, just people volunteers,
I mean, obviously, I think there's gonna be things that we work through that come up, so hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping this is a good, foundation to build from in terms of volunteer policy. My plan, just so you all know, is, I'm very grateful to Cindy for pulling together all the policies that she could possibly find that we have, as well as the last time they were updated. And then she reviewed the other special districts, I think she looked at Glendale, I'm not sure where else, and made a list of policies that we don't have that she recommends that we do. So I sent 3 policies for review to BB&K in the last month. I haven't gotten them back yet, but I'm really hoping to bring 1 to 2 policies a month for your review. And a lot of them are very innocuous, easy type of things, but my focus is really on what we don't have, because at least the other things we have something to refer back to. But I was talking to Kylan about it today to stay on my case to make sure we always have policies on the agenda for you, so.
That's great. Okay.
Can I just read it?
Please, yes.
This was the question I wrote, and I'm sure I know the answer, but I just want to double check. The $67 is that we pay that, right? We're not asking volunteers to pay. Okay, just checking.
So let's ask the question, how many volunteers, adult volunteers, do we have that probably need to go through this whole
I think from her and I talking about this, she's gonna have to really think about who regularly volunteers for us and start from there. And then build into the budget what we anticipate being on a regular basis, onboarding of volunteers. But I mean, I think it is gonna guide her selection process a little bit, so.
Okay, then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the volunteer policy.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments? All right, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, so the volunteer policy is approved. Which brings us to item 8, correspondence. You have in your packet, and maybe Helen, if you want to talk about this, you have a communication from LAFCO that we've included this month.
So,
Yeah, right, no, it's
okay,
confusing.
so LAFCO is the local agency formation commission, and they are appointed, they are made up of 9 members, 2 members of the LA County Board of Supervisors, 1 member of Los Angeles City Council, 2 members of city councils who represent the other 88 cities, other than the city of Los Angeles and the county, 2 members who represent independent special districts, so that's us, 1 member who represents San Fernando Valley, and 1 member who represents the general public. So, basically, sorry, if you go on lalafco.org, there's a frequently asked questions. It gives you a lot of information, and it talks about how these commissioners are selected. But so this is a ballot for electing our special district representative. So whoever's going to serve on the commission to represent special districts. And LAFCO basically is the body that determines our boundaries. They have the power to determine and amend and change our district boundaries, which, as we talked about in our meeting with Katie and Mickey when we were doing the agenda, it would be wise to pay attention to what LAFCO is doing and really try to be involved as much as possible, especially with the redistricting process coming up, and they're probably going to have to be involved with us at some point.
It's really unclear because our internal divisions, where we draw our district lines, seems to be entirely up to us, but the external boundary line of what the Altadena Library District is and entails and encompasses, that's something that LAFCO has jurisdiction over.
And they have the power to evaluate district boundaries and change them. And they do have what they call municipal service reviews, and they have announcements on their website. They do send us stuff. A lot of it has been about their budget, we get their budget documents. This is a ballot. I'm assuming they were going to review our district boundaries. Fine. But this is it's not due until April 16th. I don't know if there's another way to get more information about, these candidates other than their nomination paperwork in here. They will sometimes start calling. This is more common with SDRMA or CSTA when they have their board elections, which I'm sure you guys will hear about as well. But sometimes they'll call or email and say, hey, did you get the nomination documents, and who are you voting for? In the past, the board, you guys would kind of come together and discuss and decide if the board wanted to, nominate a particular candidate. And that goes for the CSTA boards, the SDRMA boards, LAFCO. It's something that this board has not done in a very long time.
get one vote as a body, or do we each get a vote?
We get one vote.
So we have to agree
The presiding officer votes.
Okay.
So
we're advising you.
I mean, technically, I guess I could just vote, but I mean, my thinking was basically, we have some we have boundary issues. We have things that may or may not intersect with LAFCO's jurisdiction coming up. I think it would be wise for us to just sort of be in the loop with what they're doing. And it's an opportunity for us to look at some folks who are special district representatives who would presumably, be our advocates should we need them. So I, asked that this be included with the thought that we have an agenda item, either next month or I think this isn't due until April. Yeah, so either next month or honestly in March, where we talk about it and we come to a consensus, vote, send it in. But I think it's worth doing. I also think we do need some more information about what LAFCO is, how it works. So maybe we need a little. Yeah, no, it's true. I think it would be good for us to know, to just be a little bit more educated.
What is the acronym?
Local area agency.
Local Agency Formation Commission.
So nobody knows exists except for us.
Yeah.
You said there's a lot on the website too, sort of self-educated.
So, yeah, there's two, you can find some information on the Department of Regional Planning's website, but LAFCO does have its own website, which is www.lalafco.org, so LALAFCO.
Well, so I think to jump the gun a little bit, as a future agenda item, I think it might be nice to have a brief report, maybe, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just sort of a little bit of a primer on what they do, how they do it, who the people are, why we care.
And I think, especially because they have this broader boundary thing, if there's anything we need to be cautious about looking forward to our district efforts.
I think that's the most important question.
If there's any overlap there.
Yeah, it sounds like you know about boundary issues that exist, and I would like to know what those are. Or, if you think there are any.
I mean, so my question, and I think this could be probably resolved with a call to these nice people, is just whether or not we need their approval on the drawing of our districts, right?
They do have regular meetings on the second Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. at the LA County Board of Supervisors, Cannon Pond Hall of Administration.
And Catherine Barker is is a member of it's her and Hilda Solis, right? Are the two? I think they're the two supervisors on the commission.
Yes.
You said the second Wednesday, right?
Yes.
So, no immediate action on this, but just by way of sort of putting it on our radar.
What is next Wednesday's date?
We'll plan on doing,
It's
5 minute
16.
presentation for you next month.
Perfect.
4 o'clock. 4 to 5.
Okay. Okay, so we're almost there. So, item 9, proposed future agenda items. I know for next month, we've got obviously our closed session at the top for district director evaluation process. We've got we'll have the auditor's report for February, right? And we'll have our mid-year budget adjustment on the agenda as well. What else? Because facilities will be March. We'll have more policies, okay, yeah. Anything else that anybody would like to request be placed on the February agenda? And as you'll see on the calendar in this packet, I'm meeting with Nikki and Kylan on the second Monday of every month, and we're putting the agenda together then. So if you think of something between now and then, just let any of us know. We can always revise it later, but that does help prompt any report to anything else that needs to be included.
Do you want anything related to the demographer?
Yeah, I would love something related to demographer, and I will.
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, and I got a pretty good response from him last time, so I will email him directly and see what he goes there. Okay, good. Anything else? No? All right, hearing nothing, I would ask for a movement, for a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I'll second. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are adjourned at 7:53 p.m.